Okay, and we should be live here. Let me make sure everything's all good. I've got to make sure that my setup is good for YouTube and everything. I'm about to be having a little bit of a fun, different type of debate than I would typically have. Hold on. Okay, and we should be live. All right, seems like we are live. I'll go ahead and drag our friend in the call here. Hey, you should be connected now. What's up? If you want to turn your camera on, you can do that.
Okay, let me see. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Awesome.
Okay, sweet. So, here, let me make sure, talk a little bit more so I can make sure that our audio is level.
Testing, testing. We good?
Yep, we should be good. I'm going to ping in my server just so people know that I'm live. If you want, you can introduce yourself while I do that.
All right. My name is Ethan Nesbitt. I am the third vice chair of the Aiken Democratic Party. I'm the deputy state lead for Progressive Victory, and my research or my background is I was Messianic Jewish, raised up that, and then now I've since moved towards Catholicism. Um, I will be mostly citing Catholic things and the Bible for my divine command theory based arguments for the for socialism as opposed to capitalism.
Okay, gotcha. And so, like, what were you wanted to talk about?
Well, to start with, I would say that capitalism is a Darwinian system, whereas socialism is more of a Christian based system.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so one problem that I often find I have whenever I'm talking about like debating socialists is it's sort of like we can agree on some of the negative descriptors of capitalism as a system. We obviously have to contrast that with the proposed socialism. So I guess like when you're talking about socialism, can we get like a little bit more in depth? Like how do you define socialism? What does your sort of socialist idealist world look like?
Are you um, I'm I would say that mostly looks like a world where we have like community and family and people helping each other out. I would say you don't necessarily need money in that. You don't need, but you could have it, but you don't need it. You don't. But mostly a system where everybody is uh, fully selfish, or sorry, selfless, not selfish, and serving the needs of everyone else in the society, like full on communitarianism.
Okay, gotcha. And just like, a little bit more specifically, like I guess what does private property look like in the society? Like, is there private property? Do people own things? Um, how does that go? How does that work?
So private property, I mean, you can have private property. It doesn't really matter. You can abolish private property, but generally the easiest way to aggregate property would be just to give it all to the church. But that's a radical thing. I don't necessarily want to go down.
Okay, so I guess I mean, it is a pretty important distinction. It's like talking about like owning property, I guess so. I feel like the distinction of like if there is private property feels pretty important, right? Because obviously some people earn things. Generally it's seen, at least in Christianity, to my knowledge, and you can contest this, that people do earn things. People do deserve things that they earn. And the real Christian oppositions to capitalism are more libertarian oppositions. So like when you talk about like unfair wages or things of this sort, this to me seems much more like libertarian radical free market opposition to like super far right economic theory, like colloquially not far right, but like a classically far right economic theory, as opposed to like necessarily opposing private property as a whole. I don't know any areas in the Bible where private property is opposed, and I can point towards a few where I feel like it is heavily implied, if not directly stated.
Well, I think that it's implied that you can have private property, but that private property is supposed to be used for the way God wants you to use it. And so I would argue that the way God wants you to use it is potentially indistinguishable from uh, redistribution. There's one verse at least where it says, let me pull it up, where the rich, this is the famous one, where the rich man is asked, it's Luke 18 through 23. And a ruler asked him, "Good teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus said to him, "Why do you call me good? No one is good but God alone. You know the commandments: do not commit adultery, do not kill, do not steal, do not bear false witness, honor your father and mother." And he said, "All these I have observed from my youth." And when Jesus heard it, he said to them, one thing you still lack. Sell all that you have and distribute it to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. And come, follow me." But when he heard this, he became sad, for he was very rich.
So this is what he's speaking like the rich, greedy man, right? I guess in the scenario.
Well, to some extent, but he says to be perfect, first you. This is this was the first you don't sin. You practice holiness, and second, the second part of that is to, like Micah 6:8, right? You seek justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And part of that is where's that? Where's let me go back up. I have a whole bunch of verses pulled up.
No worries. Take your
Going
time.
with like Amos, right, or Isaiah, right, where it's "I hate and despise your feasts. I take no delight in your solemn assemblies." Even though this is Amos 5, 21 through 24. I'm using like Revised Catholic Edition, by the
Gotcha.
way, if you care about that. I despise your feasts. I take no delight in your solemn assemblies. Even though you offer me burnt offerings and cereal offerings, I will not accept them. And peace offerings of your fatted beasts I will not look upon. Take away from me the noise of your songs, to the melody of your harps I will not listen. But let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever flowing stream. And then Isaiah, I'll go down to, "Bring no more vain offerings. Incense is an abomination to me. A new moon and a Sabbath and the calling of assemblies I cannot endure. Iniquity and solemn assembly. Your new moons and your appointed feasts my soul hates. They have become a burden for me. I am weary of bearing them. When you spread forth your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. Even though you make many prayers, I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood. Wash yourselves, make yourselves clean. Remove the evil of your doings from before my eyes. Cease to do evil, learn to do good. Seek justice, correct oppression, defend the fatherless, plead for the widow. Come now, let us reason together. Though your sins are like scarlet, I will wash them white as snow. Though they are red like crimson, they shall become like wool."
So I guess maybe I'm not following like which part of that is necessarily pushes towards socialism.
It pushes away from individualism. And it pushes away from the idea that you have pushes towards community, right? And if you push towards community, you're necessarily pushing against the idea that the individual has um, the right to um, almost like do what they want with their property, or should do what they want with their property. So when I'm talking, I of socialism, there's some extent you have an obligation to care for your society, and part of what socialism is a system that's based around that, as opposed to a system that is based around the survival of the fittest, which is what capitalism is.
So like and you talk about like survival of the fittest, like social Darwinism. There are obviously some verses that point towards social Darwinism, but I guess we can sidestep that and we can move to that later on. For now, we'll just say like hold on, sorry, I'm getting my mod saying something for some reason in the chat. Seeing there's like an echo. Sorry, I don't know why he's messaging in the chat, not just texting me. Okay, sorry. Back to what I was saying. I guess I do have to verify that everything's fine with the audio. Sorry, give me a second. Okay, yeah, so I guess whenever we're talking about like the sort of ideas of like redistribution, I can agree that there are verses in the Bible, right, that point towards away from greed, right? Like whenever we're talking about like issues with like individual human actions with wealth, I agree that like large collections of wealth, like greedy aggregation of like all the money into yourself, with no care for other people and how that affects other people obviously is immoral. But I don't see anything that like offers a prescription towards like economic structuring, and I also deny the sort of proposition that socialism would rectify that reality. So like socialists have this thing a lot where they sort of give you two options, right? Where it's like, okay, one button is the capitalist button where we're operating within like our current system, which obviously has some injustice, some greed, some bad behaviors, and the other button is this perfect button where everyone has everything distributed. But I sort of see this as a really false dichotomy because when we're talking about like socialism, we're obviously all working within theory, and I have a lot of issues with the idea that I guess these theoretical concepts, we have any reason to trust that they would function when implemented, or that it's actually a harm reductionist stance to implement them. So that's a big conceptual issue for me, where it's like, okay, if we believe like I can agree that your world sounds nicer, where everyone gives everything to everyone and everyone's rich and we're all together and we all have community, but I don't see that as like a real I don't see it as these two are two like options we were picking between. And even if they were, I actually see it like the capitalist one, where there's a little bit of unfairness, but people still care for each other. It's probably more biblical as well. So I guess we can choose to go through each of these one by one. I can say like the mild unfairness is more biblical. I'll write these down so we can sidestep these. The mild unfairness is more biblical.
Well, the early Christian societies were successful implementations of socialism.
Which ones?
I'm talking Acts.
Do you mean oh, you mean the early church?
Early church. The early church was a successful implementation of socialism. It was the
Well,
only
so
one that
those
ever
weren't
succeeded.
socialists. So because they were entirely consent-driven communes. Like we can agree like communes can exist in America, right? Like like you can choose to start like a cooperative with people and then live in a community. Like no nothing. There's no legal obfuscation from that. Okay, sorry. Like because I see like when you look at the early church,
It
like
would be better if we were like the people in the book of Acts and we had a massive Christian commune that made up society.
I agree. Actually, in some ways, I think like when you talk about like communes being better in some ways, like I've even thought of once you get enough money, like starting a homestead with friends, and like building up like a sort of like a community-centered establishment. But I don't think in any way that's a prescriptor of how the government should be structured. And I don't think I definitely think the early church acts that way. Like obviously, there's no one removing private property in the early church. It's a fully consent-driven society. People are giving what they would like to give, which in this case is a lot to people. They're sharing, they're collaborating. But this obviously isn't like any governmental economic system, especially on a macro scale. It's like a community of 300 people doing what it takes to survive, helping each other out as a community.
I mean, you say it's not on a macro scale, but we've seen how influential is the church today.
Not very influential, unfortunately.
I mean, it's the largest contributor to charity across the world.
Yeah, it's the largest contributor to charity, but even that to me doesn't demonstrate morality. There are multiple studies that evaluate, I guess, like morality on like by merits of like crime committing or like what we would generally agree. I can pull up the specifics. I looked them up earlier. But it still doesn't reflect that people actually behave in a Christian sense. Like, yeah, sure, people may give money to charities like consolation and stuff, but I don't believe like the influence of the church necessarily outweighs the both the lack of governmental prescription or outweighs the fact that people still probably wouldn't be able to function in this like fully mass commune scale. Like even if we're focusing just localized on like inside of America and not like on the globalist scale, I still don't think it seems as though this would be functional. Hold on, give me one moment really quickly. I promise this will be the last audio thing. I have to listen to my microphone. I'm being told it's echoing. I'm gonna have to see how badly that is or like what it is. Okay, yeah, I'm having a. Okay, sorry. I fixed the audio now. My apologies.
Oh, you're all good. I troubleshooted beforehand.
Yeah, no, my stream audio, I had two inputs that were going at the same time with a little bit of a delay, so it should be fixed now. So sorry, so we can like probably the VOD will have to be started back here. But so if we're talking about, I guess like just to sort of recap where we're at, we're talking about whether or not socialism is the more biblical solution. I'm arguing that like even in the early church communities, while people did share things and did have a sense of like a community wealth ownership, that still doesn't sort of that didn't imply any governmental prescription, and it was fully consent based, which socialism is not fully consent based.
Well, would you argue that? Well, first off, I would argue that the would you actually would you say that policy in the country should be based on the will of God to some extent?
To some extent, yes.
Okay, so then if if God says do this action, should we not build our society in such a way that incentivizes less sin and more like virtue, less vices, more virtue?
Yeah, I agree. We should build a society that incentivizes goodness and like a better better outcomes for people. I agree.
Okay, so I'm extending that to. I mean, it's so these are going to be like quasi-socialistic policies. So I'm going to be saying like, okay, should we have government programs that uh, run orphanages or feed widows in the same way that we should have government like programs that disincentivize different sinful behaviors?
Yeah, I can agree. Like we should have some level of like governmental provisions for like widows, and obviously like I'm not a hardline libertarian. Where I'm like, oh, no, none of this stuff, But I think regardless, that doesn't really seem to aptly fit the definition of socialism to me. When we're talking about like lack of private property, or like a full worker ownership of industries. This feels like a big leap. Like I can agree with you. We probably have a lot of commonality in how like free markets should be structured. Like I think when it comes to like I believe in big trust busting. I believe in some level of minimum wage seems to be beneficial. I think unions are beneficial also. To me, these things are far better at allowing for like more I guess egalitarian would be the word, like economic outcomes than like the theoretical prospect of like
Okay,
abolition of
what
private
happens?
property.
What happens when we've invented everything?
What do you mean?
So there's two different ways you can manage a society. When you're playing uh, a game, right? Uh, there's different ways to govern your economics when you're growing versus when you're not growing. And the
Yes.
question, and when you're innovating, when you're not innovating. So if we've developed all of the technology, and we've done all the innovation, and we've got to the point where we can extract resources at a rate that can satisfy the entire population, which we can today, across the world, we could like world hunger is famously a distribution problem because we have enough food to feed everyone, we just don't, right? So if we have the ability to produce on scale mass amounts of resources, and we then have the eventually the automation of that ability, would it not make more sense to focus on the distribution problem after we've solved the wealth generation problem?
I mean, I think like if you remember like unemployment, like UBI, like I think eventually, obviously, if we have mass unemployment, it'll be like a necessity to have some form of UBI, or else everyone just dies. Because obviously, so some people will have to have like universal basic income, ideally universal high income. If we had like exceptional economic realities, so, like I can agree, like in a timeline wherein we reach a point to where like we have such little jobs that everyone basically has to work like some sort of low end service job that isn't really pushing much economic value, and all of like our income comes from like the global economy with our state pushing out products. Like in that scenario, yeah, obviously we'd have to have some sort of UBI, but that doesn't even, to me, that doesn't represent socialism at all, because it'd still be private property in that sense. Like it would still be like people working for what they get, but there'd probably be some sense of like a distributive like increases the quality of life, because obviously we wouldn't be able to fit into the niches that are successful in our economy. But that
I
feels like
would
that's like a
say,
30-year down the road problem, though. If we have like somehow solved our full debt crisis, we've won the war with AI. We're now the predominant superpower when it comes to the technological advancement. So like I almost fail to see how
you
that's
think that's
relevant in the
30
current
years
debate.
down the road?
I think so, yeah.
I think we have a liquidity crisis in 10,
Oh, you're talking about like
maybe
economic
20.
hardship in the future, yeah. But even then, how would that help
Yeah.
with socialism, right? Because I mean, like another big problem I have with the socialist like sort of idealist worldview is like, okay, yeah, sure, I can agree like with some of these negative prescriptors, but like regardless, if you want to actually survive, the AI revolution and all of the rapid technological revolution, we obviously have to be globally competitive, right?
Well, yes, but there are two ways to be globally competitive.
Given to me, what are your two ways?
One way number one, you invent it. But once you've invented everything, which AI is about to do, it already did it with sequencing all the known proteins in the world, right? Famously in biology. If you, I don't know if you're aware of that. They sequence all the possible proteins. Um, they can, it'll seek eventually. Will know all of the known data, right? And once we know all of the known combinations of ways we can arrange matter to create technology, we will have invented all the technology. There will be no innovation problem.
Well, there'll be no innovation problem. But regardless, we still need to have like okay. I guess the better way to put it is, if we're talking about having a like globally competitive market, like a lot of in that scenario would be a service based economy with like doing I guess management of these systems. I think probably we'll see like more higher end wealth distribution and more wealth gap increases as time goes on because we'll end up seeing a more top heavy economy because obviously with AI, very few people are liable to the gains of one artificial intelligence system, which I
Well, or
actually
we
agree
could
is a big
require the
huh.
yeah, or we could require the gains to be distributed.
Or we could require the gains to be distributed. Okay, but like uh, this is like a fully hypothetical system we're operating with. So another issue I'm seeing is like so when you talk about like the socialist worldview, like I'm a big believer in like harm reduction for economics, right? Can you agree with me on this? Like
No.
economic philosophy, it's primarily harm reduction. Where we're trying to say on net what is most likely to lead to the best outcomes, right?
Um, I don't agree that the best outcomes are going to be harm reduction
Oh,
necessarily.
so how else should we structure economic system aside from with harm
Your,
reduction in mind?
your economic system should mostly be structured on providing needs to the most amount of people,
So like
which I guess
reducing
you could
harm for the
argue is
most
harm
amount of
reduction.
people.
But not it's not about harm. It's about what provides benefits to the most amount of people.
Okay, but these are the same things because obviously, like, if we're not within a surplus, then it is harm reduction. Like, obviously, if we're talking about like harm reduction in this scenario, so like we're trying to make the best possible system that will have the most likelihood of panning out in the direction that we both agree will work. Right? That's a better way of referring to harm reduction. So like I'm saying, of course, with economics, we're working within like a sort of a cloud of like unknowns, and this comes from a lot of my position as a conservative. Like I see it like when you talk about like economics, especially, it's a really complex game where we've done a lot of decisions that have seemed to be really beneficial, and then 30 years down the road, we see them as highly negative. Right? So I'd say like whenever we're talking about like operating within full economic theory, it's really important to understand that if we have no like implementation case, like a good example is a lot of people can come up with really weird governmental systems that only work in their head, right? You'll talk to people who are in like very low end institutional roles, like college Republicans, stuff like this, where they'll talk about like or like college Democrats, I'm sure also, where they'll have like a novel political system that has this type of voting and this type of electorate and this type of this. We can all agree that once we actually implement these systems, we'll probably see a lot of unintended consequences, right?
Well, there are no novel systems, and that's the reason why we can model the consequences. Because we can read Aristotle and we can see these are the types of governments that are possible. There's an archetypal nature to just based off the fact that things exist. And that archetypal nature can be used to model the different outcomes based off of what the things are. I would say that economics, um, the reason that we get our economic things wrong is because we model it based. Right now, we're modeling it based off of GDP. We need to be modeling it based off of amount of value or goods and services uh, produced that can be used in a more like domestic manner. We're modeling it based off of how much consumerism we have, not how much capacity to provide well-being to our citizens we have.
Yeah, well, there's sort of multiple reasonings why I don't see that as too much of an issue. Like the GDP thing, as much as I think there's more to GDP and it comes from my area as a protectionist, it also comes, GDP is still really important. It's still a really good metric for general quality of life. Like, as much as, yes, it's not the metric, it still is when you come talk about global competition, it's one of the best establishing metrics. And we talk about like as a heuristic, like quality of life, it's also a really good establishing metric. So like if we're talking about like I guess like
Well, it
everything
was a
being
good quality metric, not anymore. Not now that other countries that don't have the same level of human rights are rising in their GDP.
some of humans are rising GDP. You know, it's not a perfect heuristic, but it's a pretty good heuristic. It's like heuristics obviously like a shortcut of thought, but not like a perfect establishing metric. So like I'm not saying GDP
Well,
is
if you're
like a
talking about
good. It's not a one-to-one metric, but it's one of the better metrics for saying on net generally higher GDP communities, aside from like a few weird exceptions. I think Singapore is one of them. Generally, higher GDP oftentimes does correlate with. A good example is there's very few really high quality of life, really high like lateral moving countries that are still a global superpower that have low GDP, right? We can agree on this, you know? So if you have to balance all these things, GDP is probably an important part of that mix. So it's still important. It's just not maybe the entire priority, but it's a big part of the picture.
I wouldn't say I actually don't think GDP is an important metric.
So you think if
Still,
we had
because
really low GDP, we'd be globally competitive?
I think you could be globally competitive with a low GDP
Like,
because you could be
can you
have
give me one
people that aren't just
example
buying
though?
and selling things. You could have people don't need to buy and sell things. You could have a whole 1 year when you have no GDP at all because everybody bought everything the previous year that they needed, right? Um,
Yeah, but
the
obviously
idea
on
that
a
we have
globalist economy, though, GDP is a really, really good indicator of like economic activity and economic like interplay, right? So you're talking about like a
yeah, but
globalist.
is
We're in a globalist
economic
economy.
activity good?
Is economic activity good? Like as a heuristic, generally more economic activity is negative or is necessary for someone to play in the global economy, right? Like so it's not necessarily like okay, like obviously there's like the old like Lex Friedman criticisms of like entirely GDP based metrics, but still I think you need high GDP to be globally savvy, and I see that there's no counter examples. So it's like we can operate in theory of like, well, technically maybe by this loophole we wouldn't need it, but it's like I don't believe that operating within the realm of full economic theory is in any way harm reductionist to a possible civilization. And when we're playing with lives of people, we're playing with like actual outcomes. Like whenever we look at examples of low GDP or like socialist redistributionary societies, we have nothing but really bad outcomes. And we're playing with like capitalist or restricted market capitalist societies, like even like the Nordic companies, although they're or Nordic countries, although like obviously they have some socialistic policies, they don't scale quite as well. Like we're obviously looking at a very different example there. So like I think it's very clear that like if we're
Part of
weighing
that
the
is the
pros,
technology level.
what do you mean?
Socialism doesn't work without a certain level of technology, or it does, or without very homogenous communities,
How do you
right? So
qualify that though?
um, I'm talking like religiously or culturally homogenous communities. I'm talking like kibbutzes or like Christian communities. It doesn't work without a tech level because you can't produce goods at scale without you have a motivational problem, right?
Yeah.
You have a motivational problem where people don't want to work, and you have no incentive to work. That's the common critique of socialism. It doesn't work without it doesn't work without a certain level of technology. So you're not going to find a real life example until a certain level of technology has been innovated. Even like the hardcore like you're going out to like Marx or those kind of people. Even those people would not say that their theories would work without a certain level of technology.
Yeah, but I mean, we're still operating entirely within the realm of theories. Like you get intuit that maybe with technology it would work, but even then, like there's no examples we can pull from, and the only examples we can pull from of attempted socialism is like dictatorships, and this is even saying like it would work under your system. I don't even deem that your system necessarily is better than my system, even if it worked to the fullest extent. Like a lot of people do this thing where they talk about like socialism and they're like, okay, well, it works really good in theory, but unfortunately we don't live in the theoretical world. I don't even know if I fully buy that or buy into that. Like even if we go down that rabbit hole, it's like, does seizing private property like? I mean, isn't that pretty antithetical to Christianity? If we're talking about like stealing, from people, like you can't covet your neighbor's house. That's the 10th commandment. Like it feels as though like if everyone owns nothing and we all like live in a full mandated community and a mandated commune on like a large nationwide scale, like not even if that did function, like is there anything that would make me believe that's like better like through Christian ethics at all?
Um, it doesn't work on a mandated scale anyway. You'd have to convince the people to go along with it.
Okay, but obviously you're not
So
going to
what's
convince everyone in your society, right? So you're stealing from the minority. Like whatever minority didn't believe in the socialist regime, you're just stealing for them.
um? So the question is, it was I can see an argument there about not stealing, but I would also say that um is it stealing if the legitimate like by legitimate means it has been the that were agreed to by the ancestral ancestors of the people have been used to do so.
Elaborate more, I guess, on that.
So like right now, we have property rights. Those are
Yes.
guaranteed. I assume those are guaranteed by the Constitution.
Yes, and by God to some degree.
I mean, you can argue God, but uh, so let's say we wanted to implement a socialist regime. It would have to be done by amending the Constitution. If you do it by amending the Constitution, that is the way that the people have agreed to uh, is the valid way for uh, ruling the society.
Okay, so I guess have you ever heard of like tyranny of the majority?
I have heard of tyranny of the majority,
So
but uh, our Constitution protects against tyranny of the majority, by having very high thresholds.
Yeah, well, that's still tyranny of the majority, right? Like, even if like if I would find it hard to say like even in a socialist society, and like first off, I would also really I don't think there are very many socialist thinkers at all that think you will amend the Constitution to get a socialist society. So if we're talking about like the idea of like even if 80% of the people in the society agree with socialism, that still means you're stealing from 20% of the population, like without their consent
Well,
at
no,
all.
you can create a special district.
Or so you have everyone who was capitalist moved into one district, and then everyone who's socialist moved into the other district.
Yeah.
I mean, but what happens if that one district that's capitalist significantly outcompetes the socialist district, and then the socialist district naturally tries to redistribute that the entire society as they've deemed is morally correct? Or is that even social? Wait, hold on,
Well,
that's not even socialist, because then like that's not even governmental socialism, because then like it's just a commune of people. Like, why wouldn't like if you want the district that's fully socialist, why not just have people start a commune and live in that commune, have a co-op business, because obviously co-ops are deemed as efficient by your worldview, and then they could just pay their taxes, all live in a commune together with a co-op business. And so like really like that's already legal to have that like a socialist district. And the only scenario where it wouldn't be
yes,
legal
it
is if
is.
it was inherently not functional because the co-op couldn't produce enough money to pay its taxes.
You're not wrong. See, that's what I'm saying there is my uh that's actually part of my position is I would say just do it to begin with. Um, you can make structural governmental change, but that's not going to happen until the fundamental nature of the society shifts. And the way you shift that is by making institutions like those communes you're talking about that will propagate your your preferred worldview and will actualize it in the world and show examples of that.
Yeah, but that's like for you that's a means to an ends. For me that's not. So it's like obviously I can agree like the communes, starting your co-op is fine, but like regardless, you're never gonna have 100% consent. You're probably never gonna have 90% consent for the socialist worldview. So what really happens in these socialist uprisings and revolutions is enough people get in their head that the rich have too much money, they team up, elect a dictator, and then have one top-heavy dictator redistribute all the wealth, right?
Um, so
Or
I would
maybe a
say,
council like in the Soviet Union, but for all intents and purposes they have like an autocratic regime that distributes all the wealth according to their wants, regardless according to the consent of those who own it rightfully.
um, so I don't think they do own it rightfully, or at least not land. I think any wealth you've actually made is technically yours biblically, but any land that you have belongs to families.
Not at all. If you go into, I mean,
Uh,
like you talk about like Bible verses, like
I can talk about like in the
because
in
the
the,
Tenth
in
Amendment says you
Israel.
should not covet your neighbor's house, or like the laborer deserves his wages. They talk about like the Tenth Amendment says you literally can't cover your neighbor's house. It talks about how like you can't, it's a sin to move the ancestral stones, which back then was like sort of how you delineated your property, was through like stones that like
Yes,
showed
but
this is
what?
my claim to
How
property.
is how is that property determined?
By I guess like historical conceptions of ownership, and like generally like moral rightful ownerships, like if you have a rightful
It
claim
was
to
the
it.
historical ownership of a family, and it was redistributed to that family every so many years.
No, this are you talking about Jubilee?
Talking about Jubilee, I'm talking about the wealth that was generated by the usage of that was for the people to keep. The wealth, but the land itself was the ability, the thing that you could make wealth with was redistributed to the population, so that everybody had a chance to make at least to make the wealth, to make some wealth out of it.
So I guess like to steelman your position, like the argument is like when people talk about like Jubilee year. So like in the Bible, there's the time where they're like in the old covenant, like for Israel, there's the year of Jubilee, where it's like every 60 years, you'd fully redistribute all the money, basically set it flat, free all the slaves
No,
and start
not
from
all the
scratch,
money,
right?
just the land.
All the land. I apologize, but either way, it was a
Just the land.
communist
The wealth
society, right?
generated
Like,
was considered
yeah.
was considered to be kept by the people, but the means of production were redistributed
Yeah, so essentially,
so that
like, yeah,
everybody had a
I
chance
will
to
agree
keep.
that the year of Jubilee was very close to a social society, closer than I would think is okay. But regardless, that's not a prescriptor for government. So, like, the Jubilee year is like a part of the old covenant of like an agreement that Israel had to follow in order to remain in the good graces of God. But this is not a governmental prescription, and it's also
Well,
fully
it's
overturned by the new covenant. So it's like this is like a irrelevant prescription of the past. It's not like
no,
a Bible
it's
verse
not
that says like
irrelevant.
"Thou shalt do this."
Um, Speaking, there's a verse that says they were given to us for instruction. The old covenant was given to us for instruction. Um, I, behind it. But the point is, they're to help us understand the way you're supposed to run a society. And when we say, okay, maybe we're supposed to have some kind of uh, meritocracy where we give people a certain amount of ability to produce and a chance to make money, right? Or to make their way in society. Um, and I don't think that we do that right now.
So I guess a big contention I have is there's a lot of very, very valid, very well said claims of why this is a part of the old law, not the new law. So like when you talk about the old law, there's a lot of things that are like broad prescriptors that are given in the Old Testament that no longer are held to a T, but are used as like a general like a heuristic of probably people should behave in a way that is good for the good that this has, but not like the same way. So like, a good example is the year of Jubilee is like a specific requirement given to the people of Israel, right? And it's a very specific part of their deal with God, to foresee the coming of the Messiah, right? So when you talk about the year of Jubilee and these sort of concepts, like a good example, back in the old covenant, it's like you have to stone gay people. You talk about like ceremonies for determining whether or not women have been unfaithful by having them drink potions, and there's a lot of things that we generally see as like, okay, this is a part of the old covenant. So this no longer holds up as a part of like actual religious doctrine that we follow, and instead it's like a sort of we can glean some level of like intent from it and purpose from it, but it's not at all a commandment or a prescriptor. So when you talk about like instead like biblical prescriptors, like what most Catholics especially take from this historically is that there has to be some sense of egalitarianism. Obviously, you don't support full social Darwinism just because you like are lesser doesn't mean you should be a slave. Things like this, or like a general better fostered economic system that is a little bit more equal. Obviously, you can glean that from the prescriptions of the year of Jubilee. But to say that this system of full socialism is the prescriptor is not biblical, not historical, and definitely doesn't follow with Catholic doctrine.
Well, I would say that the ideal paradise is the same, like
I
in
mean,
heaven.
heaven's probably a socialist country, yeah, but that's not an earthly prescription. So like you talk about like a lot of biblical prescriptors, like of the biblical prescriptors that were actually given for government, they're vastly different than the year of Jubilee. Like if you go into like especially like New Testament claims, like even in like Second Thessalonians, I wouldn't even consider this to be the ideal structure. But even Second Thessalonians, they say, "For when we were with you, we gave you this commandment, or gave you this command: if anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat." Like obviously there's a level of like the New Testament doesn't command full egalitarianism. It doesn't command full social Darwinism either. You have to help the poor, but you have to help the poor. The nation isn't forced to by any governmental prescriptor help the poor. And even if it was, like I can agree, like it would be nice if we had a society where everyone did great all the time, but that's not really the dichotomy we're working with. You're working with an experimental internal worldview that makes sense on paper, and I'm working with an economic reality that seems to have reasonably good outcomes, right?
Um, I don't think capitalism has good outcomes at all.
Okay, well, obviously we're talking about like comparative economics. Like, what better system
Okay,
has better
if
outcomes?
you're talking about material wealth, of course, capitalism focuses on building up mass amounts of material wealth, but it destroys the culture of any society it's built on, because of its incentive structure.
Because the incentive structure. How so?
Okay, so you are taught to in capitalism, the way you get ahead is by making money.
Yes.
Whoever prioritizes money accrues more and more resources because of asset class and inflation, right? So if you are prioritizing making money, you are going to slowly and slowly get more and more of the resources. If you're prioritizing not making money or anything other than making money, like following God, for example, um, you will get a small number of the resources, perhaps, but you're not going to get enough of the resources to ever um, implement a godly society. You're not going to get enough of the resources to ever to make a difference compared to the ruthless moneymaker. The ruthless moneymaker is going to accrue more and more resources, and that's going to have selection, like natural selection, like effects, where the more and more people are going who are the people who survive are going to make it to the top. Because in capitalism, you can make money of one of two ways. The first way is by providing a good or service, right? And so that is generally considered moral, but you can have problems with if you're focusing too much on that. The second thing is by lying and mass marketing and tricking people into giving you money. And that is how most of the recent the tech companies and the recent like like billionaires like that have actually made their money by tricking people and basically lying and manipulating people into buying products. And their ability to do that has been considered willing to be paid for by companies. And so it teaches people to lie, right? Because of marketing and how you can convince people to uh, buy goods and services in that manner and get more money that way, or just scam artists. And it also incentivizes people to focus on material wealth above spiritual wealth.
Okay, so obviously you talk about like ways to make money, right? So you talk about like there's two ways, service and lying, basically, right? Deceit and offering utility, right? So when you talk about
Yeah.
this isn't actually an indictment of capitalism at all. So like the issue is you're talking about capitalism incentivizes people to lie. Actually, it really doesn't. So a lot of what incentivizes people to lie in capitalism is what they can get away with. That's what we talk about regulation. I'm a big believer in market regulation. You shouldn't be able to lie in advertising. That's why we have laws increasingly built upon that. You shouldn't be able to, deceive in mass media. You shouldn't be able to lobby scientists to convince them that tobacco is good for you. All these things that we push away from. And also, you shouldn't be able to greedily push people down with your accumulated accumulations of wealth. Things like, talking about like trust busting, laws that are already on the books. So yeah, I can agree that there are bad parts of unregulated capitalism, but is this an indictment of capitalism or is this an indictment of a capitalist system that doesn't prevent people from making money in the service way and instead pushes them towards the lying way? I don't see that as a problem with capitalism at all. In fact, I think there's laws in the books that can prevent almost every single type of deceitful money-making method that you expressed previously. And I also don't see that
Okay.
socialism at all would even allow for people to thrive from making the service. I think that in socialism, it's like no one thrives from nothing, like at least on paper from our example. So it's like in socialism, it seems like the people who thrive are the people who cheat the system and or the autocrats who run it, and then everyone else sucks. So we'd rather the people who,
Well, that's not really the socialism I'm talking about because, right?
well, but the socialism you're talking about is a socialism that doesn't exist, though. So like, which should we, which one, which like,
Well,
which
socialism
definition of
that will be able
socialism?
to be realized in the future, in the very near future,
But do you
or
think
has
so?
existed in, again, religious communities.
So
What I'm
whenever you talk
talking
about
about,
like, I think
I
there's a lot
think
of
capitalism still incentivizes people to be culture, to ruin the culture, and to be atheistic and stuff like that. Because if you were willing to work on, for example, on feast days or on Sunday, right, that's going to get you ahead. It's going to get you more money. It's going to make your uh, progeny more likely to survive. There are so many incentives geared towards money, right? And I think it's Matthew 5, but you can't serve God and mammon,
Yeah,
right?
well, the thing is, though, in this scenario, though, wouldn't you just legislate against that, though? Wouldn't you make it to where,
Okay,
like, working on a feast day, maybe, lost some kind of tax credit? Like, your solution to these problems is entirely, like, you can say, like, oh, well, it would work, or it will work, or I can
well,
say it will work.
how much regulation do you put on a capitalist system until it's basically just a socialist one?
About the amount until private property is fully redistributed, and private property doesn't exist. People, obviously, we live in a commune where the
Well,
workers own all the means of production. It's illegal to start a private enterprising business and hire people and fire at your will. Everything has to be a co-op. Like this is where I'm drawing my hard line.
okay, well then I think we disagree there because I'm saying I think earlier I said it doesn't matter if private property is redistributed if the goods are being used in a certain way,
That doesn't
right?
mean that
If
means it's
everybody
not private property. That's like if it's actually your property, you can use your goods in whatever way you'd like to. Essentially, like legally you should be able to. I think like morally you probably shouldn't, and maybe you should be incentivized. But like a good example is you talk about like a society, right? So like we're talking about the socialist utopia. So it's easy to say like, okay, well this system will work and it will do this and it will do all of this. But there have been many times where people have had great economic like failings and have learned from that and rectified that. Like are you aware of like the concept of like neoliberalism or like Reaganomics, like this kind of like era of like economic policy?
yeah.
So there's the big push for neoliberalism. It was like seeing like GDP is the best heuristic for individual quality of life. It's the only one we need. So the best way to increase that is to have it to where we disincentivize tariffs and we remove more subsidy and this sort of Carter and Reagan era of like economic deprotectionist like degradation, right? Like degradation of historical protectionism. This seemed really good. This seemed really smart. They had the egalitarian worldview that you can just educate out the people who should work in the middle class and should work in the lower classes. But now, at the turn of 2016, and especially the 2020 presidential election, we have two candidates who both rejected that initial premise. So this is a scenario where could you imagine if we had to jump ship and go full neoliberal, cut out every protectionist system
Wait,
the
two
same way that we would for
candidates?
socialism? Huh?
Who are we talking the second candidate that rejects
Biden and
uh
Trump both rejected neoliberalism, or at least their base and traditional policy platform did.
okay. I consider Biden a neoliberal. but
Biden's definitely not a
or
neoliberal.
the tail end of it. But
Biden was
I
one of the
consider
first
Trump
people
the
to
first
reject neoliberalism
non-neoliberal
historically, right?
president we've had. But he did do the Chips and Science Act to incentivize domestic manufacturing, but
Well, Biden,
I think
if
that's
you
more
know,
about national security.
I mean, this is obviously side tangent, but like if you look at Biden's historical policy and position record, Biden opposed neoliberalism for a lot longer than most politicians did. He turned against it pretty quickly, and he long time advocated for some level of subsidy-based policy, which is partially why some people saw him as like a sort of compromise between the hawkish neoliberals and the progressive Sanders types.
Oh, okay. Well, um, I would say that I would say that I would say tariffs don't actually do the purported effect of that's a different. That's a more like economics detail. I would say they don't work because the company doesn't have money to build in in the country, right? You contract the amount of demand available and then require them to move their factories. I don't think it actually works. I think what works is the threat of tariffs like 20 years from now. I think that's what actually works.
So I think tariffs as a soft power doesn't work, but actually for an economic measure it does. And I think you can see that very clearly when you pay attention to graphs over wealth distribution. And it's sort of like there's three factors that I see it that have really there's more, but that have really impacted the wealth gap. You know, being the sort of the direct comparison with unions, union membership, subsidy decreases, and tariff decreases. These things all generally coalesce to me in degradation of large scale job distribution. You look at highly tariffed societies; they have been able to preserve the industries in which they highly tariff, right?
Oh, yes. Tariffs are good for preserving existing industry. They're not good for generating industry that has been lost to other countries already.
This is becoming an increasingly it's a very highly debated economic policy concern. Obviously, we know that they're very good for keeping it. We got rid of it, we lost it. Biden sort of came in with the approach of let's try subsidy to rebuild these industries. I think it works better than people give him credit for. And then Trump sort of had the
Well, I mean,
ideological position that okay,
Trump
tariffs are
should
the way
get
to
the credit
rebuild.
for that because they should be the buildings will probably be done, right? The buildings were probably done that Biden was trying to build under Trump or under the guy after Trump, right? Factories take a long time to build.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a big problem with economic evaluation, but I don't fully reject Bidenomics as a possible solution to. Well, I reject some parts of it. I don't fully reject the principle of subsidy-based economics as a solution to mass middle class degradation, right? But I still think the tariffs were worthwhile trying, and I still don't think we've adequately tried it for certain industries because we're kind of using it as a soft power right now. So we're obviously operating entirely within theory, but like I guess moving back to the central point, it's like I kind of have measured examples of like what works in my system. You have an entirely theoretical system that maybe could work theoretically in your world, but every example that I look to of your system has never worked, never will work really from what we know. And every example of my system, even if it doesn't work perfectly, it works okay and it's worked better in the past when we enforce regulations better. So it's like I find it hard to say that we should move towards your sort of entirely theoretical system when from a harm reduction standpoint, like my system has worked, your system has never worked. So like as a policymaker, that's a really
Um,
important delineation.
yeah, I would say that I'm more about um, functions than I am about labels. I don't think that the you can say socialism isn't this unless it abolishes private property. Like I said, I don't care if private property is abolished if these, this, and that function of society are being met, right? I don't care if it's technically capitalist, technically socialist. That's but when if I'm by that definition, what I'm advocating for is building towards a future. I'm not advocating for like a theoretical definition or a theory. I'm advocating for that or a specific theory. I'm advocating for a vision. Those are different things.
I
So
agree
when
to
I advocate for a vision,
yeah.
I'm advocating mostly the reason I use socialism as the word is because of to describe that vision is because it is um it's an I want to take the left, the far left and the far right and I think that we should stop fighting. And I think we should work towards fixing our society. I think socialism is a good word for that.
So I don't think it is because like if you talk about like socialism, like I agree with you on some levels of like prescriptors to fix society. Like if we probably talked about the descriptors for why society's wrong, or why our economic system has problems, we probably agree on a lot of them, right? You know, wealth gap distribution, um, all of like incentivization of greed to too high of a degree, like low corporate tax rates. But I think I have a lot better of a solution set for you, And this solution set's entirely consistent with capitalism, actually, because I think capitalism is the great, robust system that has worked, and we just have to actually enforce laws that are almost entirely already on the books, and then add a couple more. So like obviously like why have full redistribution of people who own a lot of property when we could just have like really high excise taxes? Like if you're gonna have a
I'll
large
tell you one reason.
conglomeration, what'd you say?
One reason for massive redistribution is is our elites have lost the mandate of heaven. Our elites are evil. We just found out they're evil, and we need to punish them. And the easy way to punish them would be to, aside from executing them, would be to redistribute their wealth, because we have a lot of elites who were in the Epstein files, and they need to be punished severely. And so
Like
I would say,
which ones, I guess, and by what merit do we punish them?
what do you mean?
Like I'm you talking about like a
Like,
lot of elites, and the elites need to be punished. Like people like say this a lot, but it's like okay, like I agree. Like
we
some
haven't seen the
elites
full
need to be
files yet. I
punished.
can't give you a full list of people in the right. Like, we've seen 2% of the files. I can't give you a full list of everybody who needs to be punished.
No, I mean I agree. We can't say everyone needs to be punished, but it's a pretty confident statement. It's like we need to punish. Like I feel like a lot of times when you go really deep into socialist policy, and you talk about like okay, you go into like the agreement of like okay, me and you are trying to figure out the way to make society the best it can. It eventually sort of snaps at a point. It's like these people are against us. I don't really see it that way necessarily. I think there are people who will use bad for bad, right? Obviously, there are people who have leveraged bad for bad in the past, but wouldn't it be a better way to just decrease their ability to leverage that than like punish them because they've leveraged it?
It'd be good. No, actually, um, collective sins require collective punishments.
No, they
If
don't.
we're talking about the
Collective
uh,
punishment is an inherently anti-Christian concept.
no, it's not.
Where is collective punishment ever expressed in the New Covenant?
Oh, you're talking New Covenant. Yeah, I
It's
was about to
that's
go to the Old
it's
Covenant.
actually that's
Right?
traditionally like a Jewish principle is collective punishment. That's abandoned in Christianity. We believe in full individuality of sinfulness. No one is liable for the sin of their brother. You are liable for your own sin only. A father is not liable for the sin of their child. A child is not liable for the sin of their father.
So
So
that's
collective
also in
punishment. I don't believe
Judaism.
I fully reject collective punishment.
For running a society, you need collective punishment. Otherwise, the society degenerates into immorality.
No, you don't. Let's talk about like okay, so like for example, like the people of Weimar Germany, like the Nazis, they felt very strongly that like the Jewish class had collectively like hurt them, and there were some people in the Jewish like race and religion who had hurt them. So obviously, collective punishment in that scenario is pretty evil, right?
So I'm not saying collective punishment in that case like that. I am saying collective punishment based upon um, or like was prescribed, like kill the witches, right? Like
Yeah,
we have killed the witches and
we
so
don't
on
even
that.
believe in like Catholics generally don't even believe in the death penalty. So it's like okay, like if we're talking about like punishment for like a group of people collectively. Collective punishment is like a very anti-Christian concept. I think it's very immoral too. It's like a good example is like okay, like say about like burn the witches. Like I guess how is the system of persecuting the elites? If a lot of the elites in Germany were seen as being Jewish, is the only thing that made it wrong that they weren't actually the elites who were Jewish? Like if the elites all were Jewish, would it have made sense to collectively punish the Jewish elites in Germany?
Um, you're trying to get a Jew to support the Holocaust. That's not happening. Um,
Well, it seems like it's the same set of reasoning, though, right? Like, can we agree? Like, at least in that, like, they saw it as like okay, collective sin requires collective punishment. They were only able to do it because they were pagan. That's the only way they were able to justify it. I'm a Christian, so I can say it's wrong. But like, you can't really collectively punish people. Like, that's how you lead to like mass genocide. It's actually why like that's why like I think the conflicts in Palestine are bad for many reasons. Like, that's part of the rationale that some people use. Like, these people have done a lot of bad to us. We have to collectively punish them. So it's like I don't see it that we can really say
you
like
have to
because there's an
punish
oppressor
people
class, we can just like
publicly to incentivize morality.
do you have to? You have to punish people operating within the legal bounds of the system they're provided because we feel as though those legal bounds are not good.
Within the legal bounds of the system, I'm talking about Epstein people.
Yeah, okay, but I'm saying like we're talking about elites though. You said elites. Like, do you think all the
I'm
like
talking the elites that were in the Epstein
do you
files.
think all the rich people are in the Epstein files though?
I think a sizable portion of them are. I don't know how many. I know like you've got people like you got Musk, you've got Teal, you've got
Yeah. And so
Bannon.
because of that, we collectively punish the
And like
elites, right? Bannon's not even a billionaire
um
either.
Okay,
And
Bannon.
Bannon also wasn't even
Fine.
on the island either. Bannon's, or I think he may have been. Bannon's only relation was a PR guy. We have no actual indictments of his morality. Although I would consider being a PR guy probably a bit of a weird choice, but like I would say it's a pretty logical leap to call him, like indict him for an immoral action aside from like what I would call be representing someone who I really wouldn't respect.
Wasn't there like I'm pretty sure I saw emails in that of him talking to Epstein about stuff related to the
Bannon,
island
so
people.
Bannon was basically they kind of cut a deal from what I've understood that Bannon would like help rehabilitate his image. Even then though, it's like we're talking about like collective punishment. It's like okay, like we get into this whole like elites thing. It's like the elites are our enemies. We have to punish them. It feels like a couple of rich people did some really bad stuff. Maybe some more people did. So now we're
It's a
trying to like get
couple of rich people.
vengeance. Yeah, like how many
You've
more?
got
I mean,
literally the entire political, oh, not the entire political, but a sizable portion of political establishment. You've got mass resignations from Congress. You've got
mass resignation from Congress.
multiple presidents across multiple administrations.
We're not seeing mass resignation from Congress.
Oh, not resignations. There were a ton of people saying they weren't going to seek re-election.
Oh yeah, and some people said they're not gonna see re-election, but even then, like we can't use like some people who did really really bad stuff as like an indictment to punish an entire class of people because they make more money. Like this seems like a pretty bad like lump sum. It's like it's not like a conspiracy where all the rich people got in a room and said, okay, we're gonna do this evil thing. It seems like a lot of rich people were in on a plan, and now like the
Yeah, you cut
solution
out.
is like collective. This doesn't seem like it was like a scheme where a bunch of rich people all agreed they were gonna do something evil, or like all the rich people in the world. It seems as if some rich people did some bad stuff, and your solution is a collective punishment. Kind of like how in Germany, like some
Of
Jews,
those rich
like,
people,
huh?
of those rich people, specific rich people.
So we should
And if
only
they try
punish
and
the people in
hide
the
it,
Epstein
we're gonna have to.
files.
You have to. And yeah, all the rich people in the Epstein file.
And then how does this tangentially relate to socialism at all, or like punishing elites?
Because I think the vast majority of elites were in them, and I think that if we don't get them released, we should just blanket punish them all
Wait,
because
wait, 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 wait.
and
You said we can't get them released. We should blanket what them all?
we should blanket punish all of the elites
Wait, what the hell? So,
because
so just because like
if why
if we can't prove that like if we can't prove that
if they cover up the 40 the 98% of the or the 40 like terabytes of the Epstein files to disincentivize future cover-ups by elites, we should hold every single member of the elite accountable.
wait, so we should that's a bit psycho. We should kill Warren Buffett because Warren Buffett. We should kill Warren Buffett because Congress won't release the Epstein files. Like you see it doesn't really add up here. It's like okay, are they the people covering it up? Like is Warren Buffett covering it up? Like I don't think so, but he's definitely an elite, right? Or like who qualifies as an elite in your worldview? Is it like 100 people, 1,000 people, like 1,000,000 people? You're talking about the top 0.1% wealth holders. It's like what like 20, 30,000 people. Like what percentage of them were involved. I don't. A collective punishment for people because you can't figure out who did it is obviously an extremely anti-Christian position. In fact,
It's extremely. Oh,
it
what
feels
do
like
you
a
mean?
very
You
it
just
feels
saying
like a Naziistic like approach to judgment.
it's not Naziistic. I mean, it's practical. It's well, it's Nietzschean.
Well, yeah, the Nazis thought it was extremely practical to like kill all the people who are of the class they deem as evil, but that's still not good, right? Like if I say like, okay, well, I really don't like you what organization are you a part of? Like the Democratic Party, right? If I say like I don't like the Democratic Party, okay, well, some people are preventing like leaks from the Democratic Party from coming out. Kill all. Like that's obviously you can't say that, right? That's obviously evil. So like we have to say like okay, at the end of the day, we have to say like collective punishment is always evil. It's always wrong. It's anti-liberal, and this goes back to like a lot of the problems with socialism. Like you go into this thing where it's like okay, well, I think everyone needs to be equal and everyone needs to be happy, but also these people are evil and they all need to die. It's like okay, but do they? Like where's the proof? Like what did Warren Buffett do to you that was explicitly evil that he should be punished for possible actions of people around him? And I don't even know if he had any connection to Epstein at all. Maybe he did, maybe
I
he
don't have a
didn't.
clue if Warren Buffett did anything.
Yeah, exactly. So
But
why
what
would you
I'm
kill him if he's just or punish him? I guess if you want to be more chill about it. Like you can't collectively punish people because like they're part of a class that's something bad. It's kind of like that's the same philosophy that led to every mass genocide ever, basically.
so
Or better yet, when the Bolshevik Revolution happened and they killed all of the like elites who like were hoarding money in Russia, like all of the people who like were predominantly allowing for this feudalist system. Was that a moral action or immoral action?
um when they killed all the people in that society,
Yeah.
I would say generally speaking that was an immoral action.
So how is that different than your idea of collective punishment in this scenario?
Um
Because that one is actually more warranted because they were all in on a feudalist system. In this case, they're operating under a consent-based capitalist system.
Um, so I still, um, so I would say that it's immoral, but we should still do it.
It's immoral to kill a bunch of people. But we should still do it. Why would we still do it if it's immoral?
Because you get to a society where people can be moral again.
So the ends justify the means.
Well, in this instance, yes, but
So when
the ends only
Hitler thought
justified
the
it for
Jewish
one
people,
generation.
when Hitler thought the Jewish people were like sort of bringing about a sense of like societal moral degradation, and he thought that by that logic, isn't that also moral? Because even though the action was immoral, like it would have led to a more moral society. Because like regardless of who got caught up in the crossfire, you still got rid of the central
No, no, no.
problem.
I'm still not saying it's moral to do it.
Well, we should do it though. So he should have done it. It just wasn't moral.
Okay. Into what? Achieve his perfect Aryanism by his definitions?
No, to
You're
get rid
gonna,
of what
you're
you
gonna,
say, like societal degradation. You know, the moral loss of egalitarianism, the herd of the
the
working
Jews weren't
class.
causing
The
societal
rhetoric was almost the
degradation.
same, right?
But the Jews were not causing societal degradation.
So the difference is that the elites are
So
actually causing the problem, so it's justified to kill them.
yes, the
Who's the
same way that if I
decider
was
though? Like,
arguing with
but you can't even
the same way
justify
that if
that though.
I can't justify it. There's no moral justification there.
How is it? No, it's not morally justified at all because you're advocating for collective punishment because some people were in files where there was like a sex trafficking ring, which were rich, and then other people who are in government who aren't even the elites are in this scenario. Maybe they're funded or whatever, but like aren't all the elites are covering this up, so it's okay to like punish all the elites collectively. Like how that's absolutely immoral. It's absolutely collective punishment. It's virtually identical to the Holocaust like worldview. Because actually there were like some people who happen to be Jewish who were doing bad things in Russia in Germany. So it's like they say, oh, well, they're covering up. Let's kill them all. Like obviously this is bad. Obviously what leads to a bad situation. So collective punishment is always evil. I mean, I think it always is. You have to evaluate things individually, especially if we're talking about Christianity. Like, talking about the Christian worldview around around socialism. Like, yeah, it's immoral. Yeah, it's wrong, but we should do it. The word should in the scenario has an ought claim. So like how do you evaluate like should? Like why should we do it?
When I'm talking there, I'm talking just as a practical matter.
Practically, yeah, but like to what ends though? Like yeah, practically to achieve what ends?
The end is to achieve a society that is utopian to some extent.
Okay, so it'll be utopian once we kill all of the outgroup rich people who are evil.
Um, not only after that.
Not
There are more.
only after that. So there's a couple more steps, but once we kill the outgroup of people who we've deemed as evil, then we're good. It's fine as long as we're correct. I don't know. The Nazis thought they were correct too. The Bolsheviks thought they were correct. I mean, basically every single governmental fascist communist
The
purge.
Levites thought they were correct.
What?
The Levites, when they went and killed tons of the people of Israel, thought they were correct. The children of Israel, when they were following God's orders, thought they were correct.
Yeah, because God told them directly. Did God tell you to kill the elites?
Did God tell him to kill the elite?
If he did, you may need to get a mental evaluation because I don't think he did. He hasn't told me that one. So I think we have to say, like, okay, what is the moral solution? I really reject the fascist worldview that we can say, like, okay, this outgroup needs to be murdered because some of them have done wrong. Like this is a fascism debate. That's an intrinsically fascist principle.
No, it's not intrinsically fascist.
Yeah, it's intrinsically fascist. There's an outgroup
It's
that
not
we
an
decide.
outgroup because some of them are wrong. It's not because they have. It's not because they're an outgroup that has done wrong. It is because they have. They're an outgroup that will continue to do wrong because they have power to do so.
Okay, hold on. So if we're
So it's
talking
about
about
stopping the evil people. In order to stop the evil people, you wipe the group that could be doing the evil out.
so you'd say like you
because
identify enemies, like these enemies like unify us. Like this is the unifying enemies we should work against, right?
No, I mean, sure, we should unify against them. Otherwise, we have no chance.
Surely.
But I'm
So we
not
have to
saying that
unify
they're
against
the enemies we should.
we have to unify against the
I'm
elites, right?
saying,
Surely.
but I am saying that the reason we should do it is to stop them from doing evil.
Okay, yeah,
Right?
but that's because they're our enemies though. So of course, every fascist regime has also thought that they were evil, so we have to unify against them because they're evil. Fascist regimes didn't think, oh, these people are great, but I want to unify against them because I don't like them. Like they always thought they were evil. It's like And then
Yeah,
you're talking
yeah.
about like
I'm sorry.
more
How are
like
you going to argue that elites that sacrifice babies to demons are not evil?
how do you prove that? And also, how do you prove that all the elites are doing that? Even if you can prove that one of them were doing that, that doesn't advocate for collective punishment. So even if one elite literally recorded a video of himself murdering a baby for like Moloch or whatever, that doesn't mean you can kill all of them. And that's a fascist principle inherently. It's like you talk about like the idea of fascism. One of the most defining traits of fascism is identifying enemies as a unifying cause to fight against. You know, the idea of like a tyranny of the majority. You know, these people are against the majority. You know, abolition of private property. Like, these are all generally fascist principles. I think this is a fascist position.
It's not a fascist position.
We should collectively punish people because we deem them to be wrong or immoral against
No,
the
it's
the
not a
people.
fascist position. I mean, it might be a position that has been held in the past by fascists, but when I'm saying that it's not coming from a place of fascism, it's coming from a place of justice.
Yeah, well, they thought it was just too though. That's the thing. Like, has there ever been a society that held the doctrine of collective punishment and acted in collective punishment that you think was morally sound?
Israel
Israel, like in the Old Testament or in the
in the Old
modern world?
Testament.
Okay, well, that's the old covenant. So the morality was different there. So we got to try again. Like, what within the modern sense of morality, has there ever been a society that had a moral reason to mass punish a group of people based on the sins of few? There never has
Um,
been. I can say like the only options we can point towards are genocide. Because this is genocide. You're advocating for genociding rich people because they're rich, right? I mean, like maybe I don't know.
no,
I think genocide is ethnic inherently. So I guess in this case it wouldn't be ethnic, but like
I'm not advocating for genociding rich people because they're rich. I'm advocating for executing the rich people in the Epstein files, one way or another.
okay, but you said like if we can't discern who is who and we can't right now, then we should just deal with them collectively, right?
Yeah,
So you
like
are advocating for killing them all because we can't figure out which ones did what. So it's
but
like
but that's because we can't that's the quote from who's it like God trying to decide was an invasion, some Christian crusader killed them all like God decide.
yeah, but if we're talking about like okay, do you support Bukele in in South America? Or I guess it's the president of Colombia or no El Salvador, sorry.
Bukele is the president of El Salvador. I'm trying to think. What has
Because
he done?
he's collectively punishing people who he sees as criminals, doing mass arrests, but some people who aren't the criminals are being arrested.
Well, so generally speaking,
And
he
his
is
outcome will be
considered
better than yours
right wing.
probably too. He's considered a
Say
fascist by many people, or at least that policy is considered
he is
fascist.
considered a fascist by people.
Yeah,
But I would say that he dramatically reduced the crime rates in that country.
yeah, he did by being I think your ideology is fascist.
Not fascist.
Okay, but how are you different than like how is this different than like a fascist ideology? We can go through like the points. I mean, like in this scenario, it seems like you
Like
have at
they were,
least you're at least on the way to being fascist. So like I mean, obviously like the idea of like okay, you know, the like a big obsession with like crime and punishment. These people are against the people. The labor powers. We've been suppressed. We have to rise up against these people. Forge a collective effort against the elites who have been oppressing us. Is this not the same scapegoated ideology has led to like almost all the big mass genocides in like history, or at least like things like the Night of Long Knives? Like how is this different? Okay, but here's a better question: if Hitler, instead of targeting Jewish people because they were Jewish, just targeted rich people, would he have been justified?
wouldn't be named Hitler. He'd be named Marx.
Okay, so is Marx justified in killing rich people?
Marx justified in killing rich people. Depend on the rich people.
So it seems to me it depends on the rich people. Okay, but like because in
I
your
still
scenario, because okay,
I
so here,
don't think it's
if Marx existed in a society where there were some files that indicated a couple of big people, big names that are rich, possibly being involved in bad crimes, by that logic, then it's justified for Marx to kill the rich people because the rich people are in on the evil, they're on the bad team.
yes.
Kind of like how the Nazis saw Jewish people as doing bad stuff, so they agreed, we're gonna get these people, we're gonna kill them. See, I can say like I can say for me, I think this is even if we don't want to use the word fascist, although I think it is a fascist position, it's at the least a genocidal or like a murderous position. So like, even though you want to go deeper
Not
into
a
it, like
murderous position
okay, so you're making an
because
ought
it's
claim, right? So if we're making an ought claim that okay, it is
I'm
good,
making an ought claim.
yeah,
I mean,
you're
I
making
am
an ought
making an ought claim,
claim.
but I'm not making a moral ought claim.
Wait, but hold on, shouldn't the government act morally?
The government should act. Um, Government should act morally for the most part.
Okay, but in which
It's a,
parts do they not act morally? Like when should they not
it's a
act morally?
disgrace. It is a disgrace to justice to not um, publicly eliminate these people.
Yeah, okay, the people who are convicted, but not the people who we choose to kill because we think they're part of a bad class. Collective punishment is absolutely anti-Christian, absolutely anti-morality. And the problem is you can't give me a prescriptor in the Bible or in any sense of like even in like a
Oh no,
normative moral structure.
I can't give you a prescriptor normatively moral in the Bible for collective punishment. That's obviously immoral under my framework. I still think it should be none.
Wait, so we should do it even though it's immoral.
Yes,
Why?
because if we don't, we'll just keep getting exploited by the elites over and over again.
So we should do something that's immoral because we're getting exploited by the elites? How necessarily are they exploiting us?
Oh, let's see.
And even then, that's also antithetical to morality. It's like your argument is outside of morality that we should do this anyway, even though it's obviously immoral, we should still do it.
Yeah, we should do some actions that are immoral in
But
order to
because
get
we
back to a society where we can be moral, or our
okay, but
children can be moral.
by what prescriptor are you saying that we should do the immoral action? Like obviously, like you can't point towards any objective moral framework wherein it is correct to do this immoral action because in the end it'll lead to a better society, which I don't even think it will. So it's like we should do this thing because you really feel like we should because these people are mean and we don't like them. But it's like okay, like that's not biblical. It's not normative. It's always led to bad things. It's the same justification of the
It's
Holocaust.
biblical from the old covenant
Okay, but
perspective,
that's not biblical though because obviously we're
not from the
Christian, not
new
Jewish. Yeah,
covenant perspective, right?
but obviously we're
Um,
Christian though, so it's not biblical.
yeah. The
It's
if
maybe
you're talking
Torah-ical.
if you're talking like by what perspective is this moral? I'm saying it's going to lead to a better society or a society where our children can get to be moral.
So do you believe we can make immoral actions as long as it leads to a good moral ends?
Um, no. Okay, so I believe that if you take immoral actions, you'll probably end up like condemned, right? But I would also say that um sometimes you have to end up condemned so that your children aren't condemned.
I mean, where's that Bible verse though? You know, when Christ turned the other cheek, Christ didn't like murder them. It's like, well, now no one else will have to get slapped. Like, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, we don't believe in killing people who have done wrong by us just because they're a part of a group who have done wrong. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's obviously an antithetical odds to Christianity. It's like it seems as though your morality is coming from something other than Christianity in this scenario because it's the
No, well,
utilitarianism.
no. My morality is yeah, in this particular, like, get rid of all the people, right, that
Yeah.
are like in the Epstein files. Um,
Well, not even in the ruling elite class because we can't prove who was in the Epstein files. That's your hard claim. That's the claim that we're arguing here.
okay, yeah, fine. The harder one to defend, right? So I can defend the getting rid of them under the the people in the Epstein files under justice, right? That's relatively easy to defend. It is harder to defend. It's actually impossible to morally defend collective punishment. However, I would say that because of the severity of the crime, it is warranted. Because otherwise, our entire there's no reason to believe people will be punished in our society for committing crimes anymore. You destroyed the fundamental fabric of what makes the society valid to exist and to begin
And so
with.
your solution is not judicial reform. Your solution is collective punishment.
Yes, my solution is a scapegoat to return us back to normalcy.
Okay,
It
so
is. You're
we
right. It's a
so we
scapegoat,
have a
but
purge. We purge the bad group, right? There's a bad group of the elites who have done bad. Some of them did bad. We don't know which. We're just gonna purge them all, and then now we can hard reset and live in our moral society, right?
yes.
That's what Hitler said.
Okay. Well,
That's what Stalin
that's
said too, right? Is it? What do you think
okay.
Stalin
Well,
was immoral for like executing all political opponents because they were in the way of their perfect egalitarian society?
the bone to pick was Stalin because he executed Trotsky, but
But
um,
aside from Trotsky, it was fine. Also, do we even know if he executed Trotsky? I forget that.
he ordered his assassination
I think
later. He
that's up
exiled
for
him and ordered his
debate,
assassination.
but
Okay.
because I think he ordered his exile and he died in exile. But either way,
Yours is
Um,
exile, then assassination was a nice pick.
yeah, yeah. Okay, but either way, this like okay, but so it was only bad because he killed Trotsky. Like, I mean, I think it was bad because it's bad to kill people who aren't convicted of crime, because justice is obviously a really important piece of biblical scripture, right? Like,
Yes.
okay, when you talk about Christianity, like a lot of people say, like, okay, well, but this is the Christian society. Like, but in reality, Christianity is a little bit deontological, where it's like you have to do things a certain way. You can't just say the ends justify the means, obviously. And when people do start saying the ends justify the means, that's how we get policies like Nazism, your policy, which I would say is fascistic in nature. Where it's like, okay, now we have to take this out group, execute them for the sake of the people. Um, so it's like even if it's not fascistic, it's at least like radical, like tanky, communist kind of thing. So it's like I think the worldview is just fundamentally incompatible with a moral liberal society, right?
Um, Incompatible with a moral liberal society. Um, Depends on how you define it. I would say, honestly, I don't think that
I
we
define
live
morality by
in
the
a
Bible
moral
entirely,
society.
right?
Okay, well, so I would say my position there is immoral by the Bible standards, right? So then I
Yeah.
would say my position here is immoral in this position,
Oh, but so are you a divine
right?
command theorist?
Yes.
So then why would you how do you justify doing something that's immoral?
Because the divine command is to follow in the footsteps of
No, it's not.
Christ.
The divine command is to is very clear, structured policies, and also Christ didn't believe in collective punishment either. Like when obviously like biblically collective punishment's obviously condemned.
I can
As part of the
justify
old
doing
covenant,
something immoral because I consider it sacrificing myself for my people.
sacrificing your soul for your people.
Yes.
So you're gonna break away from what God wants because you feel like it's a really really good idea.
No, because I'm not breaking away from what God wants.
Yeah, you
I
are. God
am.
doesn't want collective punishment, obviously.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. But I'm breaking away from in order to to save people who can then go on to live it, to live in a just manner.
Clearly, it's unjust though if you had to kill a bunch of people like erroneously to get there, right? Even if okay, here's a better question: if the Nazis after their genocide arrived at a perfect egalitarian world, like they said, where everyone has a community structure and it's like a semi like really restricted, maybe even socialist market structure, would that justify the Holocaust?
No.
So then, how would it justify your collective punishment?
Like again, so when I say like it doesn't change the moral justification of an action.
But so okay, but so you're even saying then the like okay, it's good to do or we should do it or I would do it. Maybe you can say like okay, well the Holocaust is unjust, but I'm also unjust. Like you're still on the similar level. Like a good example. So whenever you talk to like Nazis or whatever, I'm not saying you're a Nazi. Right? I'm not gonna throw these around. I think your ideology is fascistic, but I don't think you're an evil person. But whenever you talk to people who are like actually are like Nazis, they love to make the arguments of like okay, well they were causing this, or okay, well it would have led to this. See, I don't even like to go down that rabbit hole because I always like okay, even if they were. Even if we arrived at a perfect utopia after the Holocaust, it still was wrong. Because the ends don't justify the means, because we're not living in the Machiavellian amoral world. We're living in the Christian world where a man laid out a clear level of duty based ethics of things we have to follow. And obviously, as a divine command theorist, we believe that's what we should be doing. If we can only gather good and bad from God, then how can we justify any other sense of good and bad based on what we want? It seems that the position is immoral inherently.
Yeah, the position is immoral inherently.
Okay.
I 100% believe that it's immoral to do what I'm suggesting to do.
Then why should we do it?
Because if we don't do it, we're doomed to a worse fate.
How do you even qualify that? Like, even if I agree that we are allowed to end justify the means, like, how do you even qualify the ends do justify the means in this scenario? Like, we have no evidence that your ends would even work. So it's like your ends just like it feels like you can like on paper, like I guess like what about your society once the elites are dead? Even if I agree, okay, we can do it if the ends are good enough. How would this make your ends any better? So like obviously like this is already dismantled, but like we can go further down the rabbit hole. Like what would your ends be and why would they be better?
What would my ends be?
Yeah, like how would this lead to the better society? Like how would this fix that we're doomed? How would this fix that?
Okay. It would fix the complete destruction of our um so our right now our the mental view of us as a functioning society is been shattered. We do not have a functioning society. We cannot, because there is no punishment for ridiculous crimes.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
wait. So, okay,
destroy the
but
validity of the government.
okay. So your argument is that okay. So like okay, we've destroyed. I'm trying to steelman you here. So like we've destroyed the validity of the government. So we have to purge everything to get to a new valid government. Would that even be socialist though? Like, is this like, are we still agreeing that the new valid government is socialist and that's what'll fix this degradation?
Well, I'm saying that we should have socialism that would fix the degradation,
Okay, so
and that
how
should
do
be the
we?
policy we enact in the new government. But what I'm saying, this is the taking out the elites is a separate but related thing to socialism.
Okay, so like if we're arguing, okay, so like say we even agree that okay, say we agree that we could get to socialism through this definition. How do you qualify? Obviously, a big claim to say that we're doomed, so we have to make this drastic, really immoral measure. So by what extreme ends do you qualify that you have a solution to that problem? What do you look to? Like what's the evidence to you that this would be a solution, even if it was right to get there?
Um, Basic psychology and phenomenology.
Okay, but basic psychology doesn't really seem to back up very well with economic principles. Like Reaganomics, we thought that if we made max tax cuts to the rich, and actual economists were even partial to this idea initially, that if we made these really big tax cuts, then people would actually redistribute in the economy. We'd have mass growth, mass surplus. Obviously, that was false now. So we can say like, we can't really just use like mental evaluations to draft up a perfect utopian economic system. And this has been proven by every single social society we've ever had devolving into a
Okay,
non-judiciarily valid
until
dictatorship. And actually, if socialism requires a dictatorship, then how would that be significantly less just than like the our society has the problem that okay, a couple of people may get off scot free for a really bad thing they did. Your society has the problem that there's no actual judicial separation, very little pluralism, because obviously we couldn't vote back in private property. So it seems like your society is way more unjust. Like why makes your society more just as an outcome?
my society is more just because the needs of the people are being met,
Okay, but your society is like the
and
needs of the people are being met by stealing from everybody and then giving back to who you want to give to, right?
everybody will be acting in a virtuous manner.
Okay, but that's we can't prove that. Obviously, people don't just act in a virtuous manner just because like we say they're going to. So like, if we're not like okay, redistribution, who's gonna redistribute the money? Like, who's gonna give the money back? Obviously, the government, right? It can only be the government.
It could be the government. It could also be the
Okay,
church.
so in your but in this case, the church would be the government also. So in your society, we're concentrating all of the power onto like a couple of people or like one person, and that person is going to choose where all of the money in the government goes out to, right?
Not necessarily. It could be you could have a system of you could have a federal system. You could have an AI do it.
Okay, so we have the system. And what happens if the person who owns all of the capital and is indiscriminately allowed to spread it has all the leverage of the people? What happens if they really don't like someone? What can they do about it?
Um, you don't have a person who does that because you don't have one person that does it.
Okay, well, what if like all 12 people or all 100 people or 1,000 people agree? Okay, we really don't like blank 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 person, and they all gather in a room and they're like, okay, like, we have all the money, they have no capital, they have no ability to rise up against us because they have no capital. We're just gonna kill them. We're gonna kill this large group of people because it's happened almost every time we have a socialist government. To my knowledge, every time. So like you talk about like in Russia, like the Holodomor, like in other like I understand that maybe people don't consider Nazis socialist. I kind of do in a lot of ways, and I can back that up if we want to go down that rabbit hole. But
Wait,
like
say again?
a lot of people don't consider Nazi socialists. I kind of do, although it's a little bit of a different rabbit hole. Like, whenever power is concentrated in the hands of the government, especially all capital, it obviously allows really perverse incentives to rise to the top, right? So if they had bad incentives, they could just like kill whoever they wanted to, right? Because no one else has capital, so there's no real ability to organize any uprising at all, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then how is that more just in the society where we have judicial separation, but like a couple people make it off scot free?
I would say that what do you mean judicial separation? Like separation of powers?
Yeah, like pluralism inherently would degrade in the society because obviously all of the wealth ownership is conglomerated amongst the wealthy. So they could easily just conspire to say like, okay, well, this judiciary isn't doing what we want to do. Like, let's just kill them. Let's do this.
We're already
Organize a
running
regime
into
below it.
issues in this society where the wealth is getting aggregated. Do you think it's gonna matter when one
Significantly.
person owns all the wealth at the end of the game? Or
No, they won't though, because I
if
believe in trust busting, monopoly breaking, high excise taxes, actual like
Oh, sure, if
capitalist
you do
left
all that stuff
policies.
and you basically make a thousand adjustments to the system, um, over time,
You mean if we augment the system to how it was like 50 years ago? We had a 90% corporate, or we had a 90% like income tax rate for the highest demographic
you
in
think I'm
like
not advocating for that system?
1930. You're advocating for socialism. You're advocating for a fundamentally different system. You're advocating for overturning
No,
the
I'm
doomed to fail
advocating
system.
for uh, a certain vision of society.
Yeah, but the vision is socialist though. It's inherently this is capitalist. Like I'm arguing capitalism, you're arguing socialism. Like I think how in what world your world is like fully hypothetical, fully like idealistic. My world's very concrete, very real, has been done before, and also has better outcomes than any other social society ever. So like, obviously we can say like in my world probably seems like if we're being harm reductionist as like a governmental decision maker, probably my ideas have a lot more credence to them, right?
No,
Why?
because I don't believe in empiricism,
Like you don't believe in empiricism. What do you believe in?
phenomenology.
Okay, explain how this would lead to socialism being correct and why I should follow this discernment process.
Okay, phenomenology is empiricism is about testing the same thing over and over again to figure out if it's true or not. Right? That's pretty simple. Phenomenology is you look at the patterns, like the archetypal patterns, and then you decide what's true based off of the patterns that you're seeing.
Okay, well, my pattern analysis is that capitalism generally creates the best outcomes in society, and that socialism has only ever created dictatorships where autocrats can kill whatever they want.
That's not how that works. You're looking at archetypal patterns. You're not looking at like patterns of this.
Okay,
You're
what type
looking
of
at
pattern do we look at that proves socialism to be better than capitalism?
um archetypal myths, which all center around socialism being better.
Wait, so myths are centered about socialism being better?
Yeah, like you can have like the early Christian church, which was not really a myth, but
Wasn't
you can
socialist
have.
though.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't.
The early Christian church was socialist.
Not at all.
They held everything in common.
How do you define socialism? Obviously, redistribution, right? Redistribution, people owning all the means of production in a non-consensual way that is established by the government, right?
No,
Inherently, it has to
I
be.
don't argue it's not consensual.
You're inherently arguing it has to be unconsensual. Can people opt
You
out?
mean that?
There's no other system where it couldn't be, and no other system where it has been. And even if you're arguing for an initial threshold state where it is consensual, it's always degraded. We have no evidence that would even work. So, like your argument that the early church is socialist, it definitely wasn't. It was consensual where people entered a commune. Are communes socialist societies that are fully separate economically, or are they, And even then, like your system is legally allowed. You're allowed to have co-ops. You're allowed to have communes. The system of the early church is fully legally allowed. So then, why would we have to say like, okay, why would we say this is any a different economic structure? It's actually not. It's just like a different avenue that some people can take within capitalism. So it's not a socialist society, all of a sudden, not a socialist nation, not a socialist economy. Because you're talking about a central planned economy, and planned economy, it wasn't a planned economy at all. It was being
You
like
already
a
have a centrally planned economy if you want to go down that route.
how?
Walmart.
Okay, expound on this.
Um, all the major stores, right? They have to plan. They have to know exactly how much food to order to their suppliers. They don't do it by supply and demand. Or they do, but they have to estimate their demand and their supply, right? And they have to do that through a central planning area, and they have warehouses that will transport their resources, and they
That's
do that on a
private. That's
mass
just a
central
private
planning scale.
industry that's organizing their like actions, right? That's not a centrally planned economy at
So
all.
that's essentially planned a mass central planning as successful at solving the distribution problem that markets are supposed to solve.
No, when we talk about central
Walt
planning,
Disney beware.
we're talking about like we're not talking about companies using themselves to like interplay. We're talking about like governmental central planning for like most economic systems or like most companies, like full cooperative ownership that's managed by the government, right?
Like what is needed?
Like what?
Like what is needed to run a society? Like the government decides which companies need to be needed.
Like what is needed, or what do you mean? Like, I mean, like I'm not like socialism. Like the socialist system is not what we're doing.
Okay, so if you mean central planning, we have examples of central planning in history. Um, a good one would be Persia.
Okay, but like a full centrally
Like
planned society has never once scaled up to a global superpower. Like there's industries that
the
there have
way
social planning in.
the way you centrally plan is called federalism.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I understand that. Like, there's some nationalized industries, but like you're arguing for like a fully centralized economy, or like a centrally planned economy. So that obviously is not consent based, right?
What do you mean it's not consent based?
Okay.
Essentially
If
planned
so,
economy.
what if I'm living in your society and I say, okay, actually, I want to start a company. I want to pay people what I want to pay people with the capital that I received, and I want to then, fire who I want to fire, hire who I want to fire, conduct my business in who I want to. I want to sell an apple to you, and then I want to hire someone to pick
What if they want to go
apples.
shoot someone on the street? We don't have a consent based system in the United States.
What do you mean?
I mean, we have the idea that our stuff, our contract, and our laws are by the consent of the governed.
Well, yeah,
Other
there's
than
some
that,
level
we
of
don't have.
regulation, but under your system, though, it's like entirely autocratic. So it's like entirely top down for all economic organization, which obviously wasn't exhibited in the early church at all. So your argument of like, okay,
No,
we're going back to like the archetypal thing, where it's like, okay, like, well, we can go off
no, in the
patterns and
early
like
church it was
myths.
top down.
Yeah,
It was
no, it
top down
wasn't.
from God.
It
It's
still
top
could
down
be
and
top down
bottom
from
up.
God for the individual, but like top down from the government has never been in the early church.
Okay, because that's because they don't have a government. They have the apostles who meet the needs of the people, and you can go to different examples in Acts where they need to do something, so they go and decide who's going to do it,
Okay, but
right?
then in this case, how is this pattern or this myth, even if we are to buy it as a working system, how does this even evidence our idea that we should have a centrally planned economy? Because even under this myth, it's not a centrally planned economy. So it's like, okay, like, and better yet, why is that a better system than empiricism? Why would we follow this like what we're calling a myth in this scenario? It's like a story and or like a fable in the Bible.
Yeah,
Like, and I
like
even agree that's true. But even then, even if it was socialist, why would that be a better system to follow on rule if it's not a prescriptor that's
um,
given to people, and every in reality, every
because
descriptor we have of a socialist government is negative?
empiricism is very slow, and the world changes, and it misses things,
Well, wouldn't you say
right?
the world probably changed more from the story of the early church in like the year 200 than like our empirical understanding of economics? It's always adapting, right?
If you're using like phenomenology, which is the study of like patterns, you can predict, right?
Wait, isn't
Um,
empiricism also the study of patterns, or it's a study of like generally this causes this, so we analyze this outcome? It feels like your study of patterns though is just like empiricism, but with like selective ignorance.
no, because it's there's a landscape. It comes from this is mostly Carl Jung, but it's a landscape of things that exist across societies, but it's similar to empiricism, but not the same. Because empiricism involves proving that a thing is true and a mechanistic cause. Phenomenology is looking at the different uh, and saying this is going to show up because it shows up according to this underlying structure of reality.
Okay, so your argument is an underlying structure of reality that proves socialism will work.
Um, yeah, it will prove socialism is a better system and that it will work of the because you want bottom up socialism, you don't want top down socialism.
Yeah, okay, like, but even then, like, you have no. So the only a way that you're even able to qualify this rapid leap of logic is by ruling out logic as like the useful determinist, and instead saying that we're gonna work through, like, the story of the early church in the Bible, and that's the system we're gonna look to instead of like the actual studies of human nature that we can evaluate when we've tried this over and over again, it doesn't work. It feels as though like you're being given a reality that this has been tried multiple times and never succeeded, and so your solution to that reality is to ignore reality and then decide you're going to just look towards like what you see to be the reality of scripture, even though it's not the reality of scripture. This feels like you really want
Well,
socialism to be true, but it's not by all metrics you can measure.
if you see like uh for example, the empiricism prior to the release of the Epstein files would have said the Epstein files didn't exist by logic, but they did exist
No,
when
it
they came
wouldn't.
out.
You could discern like
Yeah.
logical inconsistencies with the narrative, and even then, like what phrenology or whatever you were calling it, like what about your pattern recognition system would subvert that? Like if you felt like it, like how else are we going to establish things are true without empiricism? It seems like that system would never have worked. Like when has your system ever historically outperformed mine in a way that was like notable, especially on like a macro scale?
Historically, how am I supposed to know what people were using on a macro scale? The only society that I know of that used like empiricism, like on a macro scale, it was our modern society.
It's like every single
Like,
government used every single government that was complex in the modern society where you have like these many moving parts used empiricism to become better. And when they didn't, empirical societies outcompeted all of the feudalist societies that were following your system of like,
we're
okay, this
running
makes
into the
sense.
problem with case studies.
Yeah, well, you have no case studies. It's like, okay, why would I ever, if I'm a governmental leader, why would I ever just trust, like, okay, I have a really good feeling this is going to work over, like, this has never worked, it never probably will work. That seems like a way better predictor, don't you agree?
No,
Okay, why? Why would you not agree with that? How do you decide
because if
anything?
you try, if you say this thing has been done and worked before in the past, I think the first rule of tactics is the thing doesn't always work.
Okay, yeah, but it works more
There's
than it
no
doesn't, though, right? It's like, okay, the idea is like, do you think there's something to traditionally followed things, like traditional structures? Like, these things are proven, they're tried, they've succeeded, they're robust. Capitalism is really robust. Capitalism, people say it works on a boom and bust cycle. That's a big criticism. In reality, that's one of the best parts of it. Is whenever it falters, it generally rises back up, and it's malleable. We can make policies to make it better. You know, we've seen improvements. We've seen times where it was good, times where it was bad. Your system, we've seen it never be good ever. So it's like, why would we ever like, why would the rational man ever evaluate this being better? Your argument is, okay, every time I've opened my front door, like, it's kind of like, okay, I have a story for you, right? There's a bomb in your garage. I have a story. This story says that whenever this man 2,000 years ago entered his garage one time, it was good. But, you know, there's probably a bomb in your garage, right? Every time someone's entered your garage, they happen to explode, you know? Versus your front
yeah.
door. Seems like you've left that one a lot. It's worked pretty well. Your argument is, okay, because of the fairy tale or the story or whatever it is, if we value it as true, I would argue that your conception that this is socialist is a fairy tale because it's not even reflected by the biblical scripture. We should follow the example where we go into the garage and explode. I mean, like, it seems as though what has worked in the past is the best predictor of what's going to work in the future. It's not foolproof. We have to look past it. We have to look at long-term trend lines. But regardless, your system has never worked. And it never, and like, until some, you know, colony of desperate people try it out and it works perfectly, I'm not really interested in putting our society through like a loopy hell ride where we go down some like crazy experimental ideology that's never panned out ever. It seems like a really good way to mess people up. Like all of these
Cool.
experimental new age like economic ideologies oftentimes fail unless they're augmentations of priorly functional systems. And your system's fully
Cool.
robust, fully new, like fully novel.
My system isn't new. It's the ancient system that has been used across history.
When has socialism been used across history?
It's been used in um. We're talking about people like any. We're going back to conceptions of a culture and a people, and uh, acting apart from a government, like hunter gatherer societies, right?
Yeah, I feel
Or
like
we're
that's way
going
more
back
capitalist
to
than socialist, right? I mean, or I guess that's it's cooperative tribes. Like your idea is that
yeah,
because
cooperative tribes.
tribalism worked, that'll work on a macro geopolitical scale. Also, even if we there's so many it's like it's wrong on so many levels because like even if we agreed like that maybe it like could work maybe and not collapse like how would we be globally competitive under your system? Like we can shift to that. Like how would we be globally competitive under your socialist system? Wouldn't productivity
There
take
are
a big hit if you remove the incentives of like capitalism?
there are two strategies to being globally competitive. Strategy one: you outcompete people, right? And you outcompete people in every metric. Strategy two: you are the globe.
So just take over the world?
That's why Marxism required global revolution,
Is that a
right?
strategy though, or is that like just something that you'd like to happen? It's like saying like, okay, well, anarchy is the greatest system if there's no more countries. Like, okay, yeah, but obviously if we had an anarchy system, like, it's not gonna work because we're gonna get taken over. It's like, isn't this fully unimplementable? Like, or like, how would you go about a global revolution? What would that even look like? Like one world government wherein like all the power in the entire world is concentrated in the hands of a small government, or a large government, or a bureaucracy. Either A, you have an extremely bureaucratic way of distributing all money in like this weird, like messed up, nightmarish UBI society like 1984, or or it just doesn't pan out and doesn't work. Like, or it's like one autocrat who controls the whole world and just kills who he wants to because he can.
Nope,
Like, nope. Why
neither of
not?
those.
Well, how would it work any other
Because
way?
you don't. The institution you build isn't a government. The institution you build is an idea that spreads to every person on the planet.
Wrong. It's a
That's
government.
the institution you need to build.
How would it spread every
You need
day?
to.
How would it spread? How would you
You,
enforce it spreading? How would you prevent a capitalist society rising up? If a bunch of people in your like idea of unenforced socialism, it has to be enforced, right? Can you agree on this?
It'll be enforced by
By
the
the
people
who?
voluntarily doing it.
By the government. It'll be enforced by the government.
No, there will be no. There is no government. The government, that was a stupid mistake of the Marxists when they tried to actually do something like this. They
You're right. They
failed because they
should have
built.
just shifted to anarchy. It's like no, that doesn't
No,
work. It's like who's gonna
they
enforce?
failed because they built an institution
Hmm.
that was made up of governmental arm, not out of the spirit of the people and the
Okay,
culture
but
of
the
the
spirit of
people.
the people is malleable, and the spirit of people generally, whenever everyone's working in communes, somehow, if you were even able to do that, they're probably gonna have a group of people who say, like, you know what, I want to sell you this and for this, and then oh wait, and then we have capitalism again. Especially if you believe that tribal societies were communist, it seems like this happened before, right? Where people, eventually started being capitalists and outcompeted the hell out of the socialists, right? Like even if we go into your worldview. It seems like the global competition problem still arises because if any group ever defies the norms of your like communist utopia, they're gonna outcompete all the communists because the communists have no real geopolitical like global incentive base. So then obviously then from there they're going to win out, right? Like if
Oh, I
any,
know my strategy works because I've seen it work before in history.
where'd you see it work?
Christianity.
When?
Um, from its start until through all the Roman persecutions.
Wrong.
Doing wrong.
Wasn't a government at all. Wasn't a governmental
It wasn't
structure.
a government.
It wasn't a government.
So I'm saying building an institution that is an idea in the minds of people that is spread across people.
You mean like the 300-person commune that was some parts of the early church?
No, 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 not, I'm not, no. I mean the idea of the church itself and the idea of belief in Christ spreading across
Yeah, but belief in Christ
Christendom.
doesn't even believe in like communism. It's just like, okay, you think most people are gonna like if they become Christians, they'd all become socialists and all like live in utopia with no like anything? And also, what do you do about like the Muslims who don't believe in Christ, or what do you do about like all the people who don't? Like most people who think it's rationally inconsistent. Like how are you gonna handle that problem? Because they're obviously in the way of our
Um,
perfect universe, like our perfect society, right?
Again, it doesn't work unless you have all the people convinced.
Okay. So step one is we convince every single person in the entire world of your worldview.
No. Step one is you convince one or two people, and then step two is they convince one or two people, and then it takes 100 or 200 or 1,000 years.
Well, let's get this process going. I'm right here. Convince me of your worldview, and then I can go on and spread the utopia. So why should we follow this?
I
Why
should
why
follow
should
it
I trust your system over my system, which seems to be going pretty good actually?
because your system doesn't give you meaning. It'll eventually strip you of all your meaning.
Where do you get your meaning from?
Then where do you get your meaning from?
Obviously, we're offering two different opposed ideologies. So how does yours give more meaning than mine?
Um, the meaning, it comes from serving others and serving God, as opposed to just a limitless accumulation.
Okay, wait, but how am I not serving others? How am I not able to serve others and serve God within the capitalist system?
I'm not able to serve others and serve God in a
It seems like if
capitalist
we
system.
changed everyone to your moral principles, they would just do what's right within the capitalist system, right?
Um, yes, which is why, um,
But is what's right socialism?
well, yes, but which is why I'm not so concerned with structural reforms in the government as I am with cultural reforms and cultural socialism.
What does that mean?
It means you teach people to act like they would under socialism, otherwise socialism will fail first, so there's no point.
How do you act under socialism?
It's basically love your neighbor.
So why not just teach people to love your neighbor instead of like have the whole socialism thing in there?
Um, Buzzwords.
So are you a socialist?
Yes.
Then why not? I feel like you're just arguing that we should make people Christian, which I agree with, but that's not socialist. So where's the socialism part come into play?
It comes into play because you need because that's part a sizable portion of part of Christianity is the socialism, which is uh, bearing with the weak.
That's not socialism. You can just help the weak
From each according
through.
to his ability, to each according to his need.
That's not in the Bible.
We who are strong must bear with the obligation of the weak and not just please
Oh, wait, hold
ourselves.
on. To each is that in the Bible? The to each according to the need.
Oh, that is the communist, one of the communist parts of the
Yeah, I didn't
Communist
think so.
Manifesto.
Where's the biblical prescriptor of this though? Like, why would biblical adherence lead to communism?
Well,
The
it
central
would
point to me still feels unfounded.
because you're supposed to be fulfilling the needs of others. I mean, that's several. I'll give me that. Let me pull my scriptures up. Got a bunch of scriptures that I
Okay,
have
well, I
pulled
guess,
up.
but we do agree that I agree with you that like helping other people the most we can is good. That's not our debate. My debate is I think your system hurts more people than it helps. I think that my system actually allows for people to be helped on average. Like helping other people isn't always just giving them all that they need. Like with ambient, like just like okay, we're passing out handouts in this like theoretical system. Helping other people is creating a system where the more people can thrive. And so like if you can dream up
Like
a
I said,
system.
I would consider everybody helping everybody else out. And when I defined my socialism, I defined it as everyone helping everyone else out and giving all the resources to everyone in a selfish or selfless manner. Sorry.
So like getting rid of private property, the giving all the resources to everyone is the part that's not Christian.
No. Using all the resources to help everyone is Christian,
Not at all.
but it is using as much resources as you can without starving yourself.
See, as much as you can, not all, or as much as you would like to, as much as you feel ready. Like okay, so in Christianity, there's kind of like the order of love, right? You ever heard of this in Catholicism, especially?
You're talking about the order of moralis.
Huh?
Order. You can. What? Ordo or moralis, or am I not pronouncing that wrong?
I think it's order of love is what I've heard. But either way, like we have prioritization towards how we help people, right? So we help our family, we help ourselves, we help God, and then on top of that, we help our neighbor, and we help sort of in decreasing priority as we can, right? So the good man still donates to charity, he still helps people, but the good man can still have his keep, earn his keep, and give things to people. Is the government mandating it considered moral? Because
There,
your system is not people giving to other people. Your system is the government taking from people and then giving to who the government wants to. So just stealing
no.
and then giving it back. Well, either that or your system's impossible. It's either one of the
My
two.
system is the people collectively deciding to give the government resources to be distributed to the people.
People collectively deciding to give the government resources. Okay, they're not going to decide. What happens if they decide not to?
How do they decide not to? Then you don't have a socialist system, and I haven't convinced people to be socialist.
Okay, so if one person is not socialist and not a socialist system,
No, if the people that enough to pass the thresholds according to the cultural traditions of the
okay,
people.
so we only steal from some of the people. We only steal from the minority, right? Like, do we see how this is majority tyranny, where we just steal from some people who don't want to be stolen from? So it is stealing. It's the government stealing from some people to give to other people because they want to.
It's not tyranny of the majority.
It is, totally. How is it not? It's definitionally. The majority is having autocratic control over the minority, making them be
But
stolen
tax is
from.
tyranny of the majority.
Taxes are not tyranny of the majority because it's a social contract. I actually think there should be an opt-out clause because it makes more sense under the social contract view.
Okay, so you think taxes are tyranny of the majority? Because you think there should be an opt-out clause for taxes. Okay.
Because I believe in the social compact, like the Rousseauan ideology. So, like, yes, but even then, it's not necessarily tyranny of the majority because it's not total, like, entire thefts. Like, the part about taxes is, like, when we talk about the opt out clause, even though it conceptually has been agreed with, that was back in the day when we had, like, no man's land. So you could be a nomad. You can't really be a nomad right now. So, unless there was one society that agreed to accept in all people, we can't really have an opt out. But that's a rare exception wherein, because of utilitarian policy, it's impossible to have it not be a level of theft. Although even then, we still agree that our workaround is that you agree to the social contract by not renouncing your citizenship.
Okay, but so you can renounce your citizenship, otherwise it's not tyranny of the majority to raise taxes. And if you're raising taxes to redistribute money, okay.
Yeah, it's a
Like a wealth
necessity, but
tax is
your
still
system's
tax.
not a
It's still a
necessity at all,
tax.
though. Tax is a necessity. Your system's not necessary at all. Your system is like we choose to take money from people to give to everyone else, even if they don't want to, even if they are the minority with no consent, even if a sizable portion of the population doesn't agree to it, because we think it's better, and you can't even qualify why it's better. So it seems like on so many levels it doesn't make any sense. It's like first
It's
off, so
better
okay, like
because hold it. I can't qualify. I already told you why it's better.
what's it better? I don't think you
It's,
qualified it.
it's definitionally everyone being good to everyone else.
No, okay, so you're presenting a false dichotomy. So you're saying the idea of like everyone's rich and everyone's happy. And I'm saying, okay, yeah, that's cool. But in reality, we're working with two different things. One thing where the country steals from all the people and gives to who they want to give to. And in the end, people turn out more poor on average. Typically, it's how this works, right? Never has worked any other way. And I'm offering a system where most people tend to do way better in every single implemented scenario. So I actually believe that my thing helps more people than your thing does. I'm not denying that. I'm not saying that the rich people should have power over the poor people, but I'm saying that in your system, the autocrats have power over everyone and no one's rich.
Yeah, the autocrats are determined by the people. Is this? Are we not? Are you suggesting we're not a representational democracy?
We're not in a representational democracy. What do you mean?
Or are you suggesting that my socialist system is autocratic uh and not determined by a representational democracy?
It would have to be autocratic. And even if it
What do
was,
you mean have to be
it would have to be autocratic because people would always vote not to have like all of their resources taken. Like historically, every single social system was always turned into an autocratic system. Even if you argue that it isn't, it always comes that way. Can you have a capitalist party in your socialist country?
you have a capitalist party in your
Are you allowed to have a capitalist party in the socialist country?
a party advocating for capitalism?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, what happens if the party starts getting the majority? They're advocating for theft against the people. They're advocating for taking away this egalitarian perfect world of yours. What do we do to the party that is now succeeding and winning over the people through their manipulation by saying that capitalism is actually better? How do we solve that problem?
Well, you're back to square one.
What's square one?
Again, you're still back to convincing the people to be socialist again.
Okay, so if a capitalist party, as they almost always
They suffer
have,
under capitalism. They
what?
suffer under capitalism. Then after they suffer under capitalism, they'll eventually be brought back to socialism.
And then immediately they'll want to vote back in capitalism because socialism sucks after like 7 years.
If you think socialism sucks, but I think I could prove otherwise.
Prove it.
No. I think that if a socialist society was built today, right, in the manner with the technology we have, in the next the technology we will develop in the next 10, 20 years, right, that we could make a socialist society that people didn't hate in 7 years.
But you just said you could prove it that you can't prove it. You just think very strongly about it.
No. I mean I could prove it by demonstration if I was given the power to do so.
No, you couldn't though. You can't prove that's a good demonstration to go for though. You can just like you could try to do it. Like yeah, of course you could
Oh
try to
yeah.
do
Of
it.
course you can't.
But you can't prove that idea is good though. Like well, how do you qualify that idea is good? How do you
You
qualify
can't
that
prove an
on
idea
the
is good if it hasn't been tried.
yeah exactly? And
Aside from
perfect
the
socialism has never been
fact that
tried. But actually, well, socialism has been tried. It's sucked every time. But we can't prove that every single socialist who has a novel conception of how socialism will work and it'll be perfect and have no problems. We can't prove it until we decide to give our country, give all of our money, give all of our freedom away to them, and then they just rape our entire country. Like, you know, at that point now we've tested it. Oh, wait, it's too late. We're all going to die. So it's like, I don't really believe in this trial run. This trial run seems to be a bad idea. So you're not very
yeah.
convincing in this way. It's not very convincing to say,
The
like,
capitalists are already raping our country.
no, they're not. How are they? How is capitalism destroying
They're
this
literally
country?
raping our country. They're literally raped a substantial portion of our citizenry.
How?
Epstein files again.
That is
Oh,
that what you mean?
I,
Is that what you mean? A couple of rich
I
guys
could
did the
I
bad stuff, so the capitalist society is causing mass rape.
oh we can also say the ice stuff.
The ice stuff. We can go into that if you want to.
The freaking blue butterfly districts or something.
Blue butterfly districts. Okay, even then, like
That's
I to be frank, I feel like at the socialism point, I feel like I've won the socialism. So we can talk about ice if you want to.
Honestly, you think I still think it's not the more moral system from like it's not it's still the closest like well I mean you're saying that my definition of socialism isn't the same as your definition of socialism, right? And if that's
Wait,
the
wait.
case, then
Well, your definition of socialism, like, it's kind of this thing where it's like, okay, if we're defining, like, whenever you have, like, fascism debates, a lot of times what people will do if they want to, like, pin you down is they'll say, well, my definition of fascism is authoritarianism plus nationalism. It's like, okay, but that's not it, really. It's like, what about socialism? Like, yeah, you can say, socialism, my definition of socialism is good and great. Well, my definition of capitalism is good and great. They're just as good. Like, you know, we have to go deeper. And so, like,
okay, yeah.
all of your socialist prescriptors are not qualified at all of, like, how the government should be ran.
No, they're not about how the government should be ran. They're about what the people should do in the government.
Yeah, same thing.
So, like, I think we're at semantics and we're getting to an impasse. So we can talk about something else if you want.
Okay, because I don't see any evidence that your system has any credence to it at all, and it feels like it would lead to like autocrats. Like socialism has always led to autocrats. People
Okay, a
always
lot
love
of
to say
people
like
don't know how
what
to start
happens
the
if there's a
autocrats,
capitalist
but
party? There's always a capitalist party, and they always get persecuted. There's never an exception.
well, it's not my fault. Past socialists were not as
Because past socialists understood
amenable.
that it wouldn't thrive because it was a long-term system that had to build up and had to get its engine going. And these are the capitalists coming in who were opposed our people and were tyrants before, and now they're trying to take it over. It's actually more logically consistent with the principles of socialism than not being evil to the outside group. The oppressors are
Okay.
back, and they're coming for your country. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't, from the socialist worldview, why wouldn't you do that?
Um, because people cannot be the oppressors.
Yeah, they can be if it's the elite class. The people, the elites are people.
Oh, the elite class. Okay, fair enough. But I'm talking the like the people voting cannot be the oppressors.
Yeah, well, these are all being led by the elites though, who have swayed them towards capitalism. It's the evil idea of capitalism, the same thing that we had to start a whole revolution to root out, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's the evil idea of capitalism. It's also the evil idea of the devil. It's the same principle.
It's not, but it's like
It's the
so
same.
so
It's the same.
so. But if people are following the
It's the same kind
devil
of
and they're
war.
trying to come into society, do we let there be a devil party? Like, do we, especially if the devil party is probably gonna win, right? We probably don't do that, right?
Who is that you or is that me?
What do you mean?
I heard notification. I think it was me. I don't know. I don't know
Oh,
what it
okay.
was. Like a beeping. Um, but like, do we let there be a devil party in America? We do,
Which one?
but we don't have a devil. We have Satanist church, right? We have people that
Yeah,
advocate
yeah.
for
Well, it's
being
we're
servants of
democracy, though we're
Satan.
capital. So like, but in your worldview, capitalism is evil, and now the capitalist party is taking over. And like, in my worldview, it doesn't really matter because the socialist government won't take over because first off, it's not implementable. It has to be implemented very slowly. It wouldn't work. You're advocating for a revolutionary system. So like, under your system, obviously, we wouldn't be able to have a capitalist party. It'd never pan out that way. Like, people
I
also
said you
couldn't
could
own
have the devil.
property. It'd be mass confiscation, it'd be mass theft.
I said that people.
And even
Well,
if you can,
I don't
and
think.
even if you can advocate for that, we should have a socialist country with a capitalist party. I still think it's pretty well evidenced that that never has turned out that way. People typically bluff on that one. So, like, as an electorate, I
I
probably shouldn't
don't.
trust that.
Okay. I okay. He is an electron. Trust that. Okay. I don't think that. I still don't think that the people can own land
Okay, they can't own land. Okay, why?
because the land is either owned by the society in general as opposed to the people.
Okay, whenever the 10th
Right.
Amendment, you cannot covet your neighbor's house. What does that mean?
Um. That's talking about um. Well, you're talking even, but again, under Israel, you're talking about like the property, like the neighbor's property.
Yes.
When
Like it's
I'm
established in the
saying
Bible, you know?
okay, under that system, but I don't think you actually can own land within that, like as opposed apart from the society. I think ultimately the rights to the land rest with um the collective group, like they do in our country, right, where you can have emergency repossession of lands in even capitalist societies
Yeah, but who gives them that right,
because
though?
of
Like,
the
where is
recognition.
it? Like, how do you discern that right? If we're talking about, like, rights, like, because obviously if a right is a privilege that you need no duty to, to have, you're using the term like, oh, well, they have the right to determine the property. It's like, what gives them that right?
Um, it's actually similar to what I'm saying. It's the necessity, uh, the 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 necessity to use this land to prevent the all of the ruination of their people.
Well, no, necessity
That's
doesn't
why
give
we
you a
have
right.
that
God
right.
gives you a right. We're both Christians, right? So, like, obviously, necessity gives you no
Okay,
rights.
okay.
But if
That
necessity overrules the rights of God, then it probably just means like, okay, maybe this pattern should be just like, even if it was wrong, it's like we can't
no.
overrule the rights given by God just because of the pattern. It's kind of like thou shalt not like murder. It's like you can't say okay, well murder is fine because I feel like it's fine. Like you know what I mean? Like
Okay.
if it's a fundamental clause in the
The
Bible and we're a
reason
divine
in
command
our
theorists, we have to
legal
follow that.
system why we have a the ability to like repossess lands is if the state needs to do something in some emergency. But we also recognize in our legal system that the state can only do that in a state of emergency because of the right to
Yeah.
property, but the right to life
You
or the
mean
right
hold
to
on,
there are other
eminent
rights.
domain?
Yeah, eminent domain laws. That's what I'm saying. Eminent
Yeah.
domain laws exist because there are rights that are more important to protect than the right to property.
Yeah, okay, but that's eminent domain is like a very very rare scenario where you require compensation for your property, which still deems it as your property. Simply that you're not liable to like okay, it's the idea of okay, we're because of a rare instance of national security or national imperative, I am going. This is how it's supposed to be. It's falsely used sometimes, but like that's considered tyranny. But like it's the idea of okay, well because this land is more necessary for national security, you still owned the land, but I'm not seizing your property. I'm paying you a fair share for it, implying that it was still your property. I'm just mandating the sale of your property. Very fundamentally different from redistribution. That isn't like taking from you, regardless of consent, from your property, because we want to, isn't an accepted thing.
Yeah, but you can raise the price. You can raise property tax uh, high enough that people will just sell their property.
You can, but that would still be considered like a contra to the capitalist system. And in that scenario, it would get voted out because we're capitalists. Like the regulation would impair that.
Yeah, nobody actually wants higher property taxes, but
Yeah, so it's like okay, but I guess like so I just see it that this is like seems like a really like it seems like an idea that's pretty appealing. You know, I can understand wanting this to be true, but I just don't see any reason why I should believe it's true. And I feel like even when you're like looking at it and trying to like really give it a hard question, it's like you have to grapple with the reality that all of the evidence we do have radically helps my case more than your case. Can we agree on this?
what evidence?
Like every single economic system that's ever been implemented.
Oh, you're talking like economics. I would say a lot of the economic system we have evidence now that capitalism has similar flaws to socialism.
Similar?
Yes. Um, for example, if you don't
Okay,
have people that are taught to be all entrepreneurs, you don't get entrepreneurs, which means you don't get the innovation of capitalism, which is the same critique of socialism as people won't work because they're lazy.
that's not at
It's
all. Because we
just
get no, that's not at all. Because you can resolve that with schooling, teaching people how to be aligned with their natural incentive. The idea is that the natural incentive structure of wanting to gain things is not at all adequately fulfilled by socialism. It's a completely different flaw.
I think it's a similar flaw. I think it's the
Not at all.
same cultural flaw of the people aren't taught to do a certain thing.
No, they don't need to be taught to chase incentives because they already do. They used to be taught how
Yeah,
to.
but the incentives in capitalism don't result in the betterment of the people.
Okay, but obviously, but so
They
that's a moot
result.
point. I guess we're like onto a new one. But it's like okay, it's like they don't result in the betterment of the people. Okay, but like your switching of the system hasn't ever resulted in the betterment of the people. It's like okay, you can say like people aren't better for it, but it's like under what system? Like we're evaluating comparatively. You can criticize capitalism and be pretty valid. I mean, there's some like it's not ideal, perfect, mega ultra world, but I have prescriptors to make it better. Your prescriptor is unfounded, so it's like your prescriptor is just like I feel like this would work basically. And also like
My
economists don't agree with you. Like
Of
in
course, my
generally,
prescriptors I feel like it could work. If okay, so how else would it not be? Because if we're saying the capitalism is the best system that has been tried, apart it's a horrible system, but it's apart from every other system that's been tried, right? The only way to improve on that system is to make a new system. This is inherently never going to have been tried.
no,
Yes.
because we could be
How do
basing
you
off of a
improve upon?
prior system.
Oh, you're saying there's a prior system that was better than capitalism?
Yeah, and your system has been tried, or at least maybe not like down to the T, but like pretty closely, right?
Okay, but like no, actually. I mean, yes and no. Like it depends on your
Okay, but it's like a novel approach. It's like okay, like
society.
we agree, like it's
Listen,
still not a moot
we're
point. It's
debating
still
this.
not a moot point
Like,
that it makes sense to do things that worked before, right?
well, I'm saying it's a different thing than a different thing categorically than the one times it has that you're saying it has been tried, and then you're saying, well, then it's just a theory in my head. Well,
Okay,
I'm
so
saying that
here's a good
theory in my
example.
head is the only chance to improve, right?
It's not though. It's
You're
not
going
though
to
because
need it.
we have ways to improve
You're go-
capitalism. The theory in your head, yeah, magically could improve things, but also could have really unintended consequences, like the ones we've measured in prior societies that didn't work. A good example is when you talk about like Plato. Like Plato has a lot of like sort of like a really weird novel concepts in his like books. Like in the Republic, he talks about like how like okay, if we had everyone intermix with everyone, and then like all no one knew whose child was their own, then people would love the community more because you didn't know who's your like with these weird novel ideas. And yeah, sure, conceptually, it's pretty hard to argue against it. Like, huh, it makes sense, huh, huh, huh. But still, we agree, like, there's something to past precedent, right? And we generally agree that there's oftentimes unintended consequences for really big radical change. So I think it's always pretty reckless to make really big radical change, especially when I don't even agree to the descriptors that we're currently like in collapse or in like a demonic state. So you're making a really, really dangerous, like very probably low percentage of success chance prescriptor, at least by like the most conservative estimates. Like some people would say like it's impossible prescriptor for an like, and I don't think you've adequately evaluated whether the descriptors we're currently facing deem that as necessary at all.
Well, the descriptors we're currently facing are about to be necessary because as soon as we hit that liquidity crisis, we're going to need some kind of radical shift in the system.
Yeah, but that would be done through capitalism. Like people talk about like UBI and things like this. Like, this is different than like
Okay, but if
for like
right,
abolition of private
so
property, right? So that still would be a
I have a
capitalist
question.
solution.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say we have a system right now. If we're saying the status quo is capitalism, what is your modified system called? Capitalism 2.0?
Just called a restricted market capitalism, like what we did in the 50s. You know, like a.
Okay, restricted market.
I don't
So
have any. I have no novel ideas in my economic solution base. I can give you like some bulletin
so
points. So I talk about like. So when I talk about like what I think would be better,
which
it would be
capitalism is capitalism? That's the
what?
question. Which capitalism is capitalism?
What do you mean? They're both capitalism. Capitalism is better, but you just have different institutional supports around it.
Okay, but what if one capitalism is better, one capitalism is worse? If capitalism means 20 things, then the new better system might be something in your head that's called capitalism, but is in my head called socialism,
No, I
right?
mean it wouldn't be because I believe in private property and like I believe in like a, I believe in like private property. I believe that like money is like an important thing. These are inherently against the initial prescriptors you give about socialism.
Well, I said that I didn't care if private property was existed or not, and I
Yeah,
said
but I
that
mean I
money
care
could or could
pretty
not
big.
exist.
Like I care
My
pretty big about it, right?
my prescriptors are not. But fair enough. There's a little bit of difference there.
Okay,
But I
but
would
like
say
so
that
like
the private
all
property is that the important thing is not my counter is the important thing is that the system results in certain outcomes, not that we have certain legal distinctions.
could you repeat that last sentence?
My point is like my point is that I want it to result in certain outcomes. The system needs to result in certain outcomes, but I don't care about certain distinctions. Right? Legal distinctions. Like, okay, do we have private property or not? Okay, what I care about is what's happening
I mean, but this is an
in the
economic
land.
philosophy debate. Like we already agree on the descriptors. We want things to be better where people help people, but like obviously, so now we're moving into prescriptors. Like you do kind of care, right? You do believe that you do believe that like the ideal communist society is one where there's no private property and people all like share and everything and everyone's convinced. Like you do believe that, right?
Oh yeah, like, there's no private property in the sense that everything is everybody shares everything with everyone
You
else.
even said like no one can own anything. Like ownership of land isn't really like a thing. Even like like
No, I don't think people can own land in general because I think that land is owned by the collective in general,
so your prescriptors
like
are
owned by
communism,
society.
right? Like basically like so that's what I'm saying. Like okay, like if I'm talking about like a like
I think that's just a true fact. Like we have taxes on land. We
it's
rent
not. I
on
don't
it
think
of the
it's a fact though.
government.
I think it's just like we allow the government to monopoly on violence and exercise some level of force against us. But I don't
We
think that.
own our land. We really own a license to the land.
Yeah, that's a criticism of like our conception of ownership. But like we're talking about like the government as an organization that has a monopoly on violence. We have a mandatory appeasement process for that. So that's like it's still like consistent with my ideology. But okay, I guess I feel like the socialism debate's probably getting boring for some people. So we can like I really feel like this has been fleshed out. Honestly, to be fully truthful, I think people at home can weigh which solution's better here. But
Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed we don't have a bigger audience though, because I thought you had like 20,000 followers.
yeah, I mean typically VODs get more views, but like live viewers are always lower. I don't know how many people watch live. It's always like pretty lower audience, but and typically whenever it's a bigger name, you get more live viewers. But yeah,
Oh yeah, I mean I
trust
don't
me,
know.
it'll get some views on it afterwards. Don't be
Okay,
worried. Um,
let
but
me good.
yeah, sweet. But so okay, so
You want to talk about anything else?
I mean, so you mentioned that you okay, so you mentioned that ice at one point, and we can talk about whatever. Like, what you're here, I'm here, I'm Jackson Heab. You've probably seen my social media. You want to come at me for anything? What do you disagree with me on the most? I need
Oh,
more
I
debate
actually
clips.
I've only watched half of one of your videos,
Whoa, that's
honestly.
crazy.
Yeah,
What do
it
you
was
think about? Do you have anything you like to? Are there any issues you're passionate about?
let's see. Uh, I'm like we talk about like AI and stuff, and we can talk about that's more like to socialism. My most passionate issue is like the death of the love of many.
The death of the what? What? What?
Oh, okay, the death of the love of many, and then the other one is let's do this one, wars. Like we need to be at peace because of the 30 Years War.
Yeah, I believe in. I don't believe in the war in Iran.
Yeah, I mean, so like I see the logic of and the strategic goal of the war in Iran.
I don't
I
see a
think
strategic
it's
goal. I think it's very strategically stupid.
so okay. I think it's a stupid war, but on the balance. But I think that there is a goal that is containing China, and that their argument is that they can control the last oil thing that China has, right? At the same time, I think that would be Rubio's argument. But I would say that it's not
None
a
of
good
them would ever
war
make that
because
publicly, though. Really, but yeah, I mean, maybe in private.
yeah, he's never made that publicly, but like because that wouldn't fly publicly. Um, that just seems to vibe with his neoliberal ideology. That's like the neoliberal strategy. Um, I would say that it's not a good war because one, it risks World War III with China. Two, it's gonna waste American lives and it's gonna cost a bunch of money. Um,
Yeah, we probably agree on everything on this. I'm very, very anti-war in Iran. Do you believe
yeah,
that
I mean
mass deportations are morally better than not mass deporting people?
no, and the reason why is because well, I have a very weird view on that actually. So my view is that we should annex all of Latin and South America.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I also think that would be the quickest way to a Christian majority nation.
Hmm.
It would also be the fastest way to a Catholic majority nation. So when I'm saying that, so I really don't think we should be mass arresting Catholics and in the streets because they're from a different country.
It's a very novel worldview. I have to think about how that would play with my ideology. That's really novel. Uh,
Like most of the people we're arresting and deporting are Catholics who are more uh like culturally Christian than the people we have in this country.
um,
Just because they're not citizens doesn't mean that they're not the kind of moral people we want in the country on average. Now, if we got like violent criminals and cartels, we should obviously get rid of them, right?
yeah, I believe in mass deportations, but under the guise of like annexation and like majority policies, I don't even know how I would. It's a really weird position. Do you think that's
It
feasible?
would also help us on the geopolitical stage because we'd be the size we'd have 1 billion people, so we'd be the size of China, right? Um, we would have all of Venezuela oil, right? The Venezuelan oil, and all the natural resources of South America, right?
Do you think we'd be able to successfully manage this annexed territory though, and like prevent like revolution or like revolt?
Oh, you prevent revolution by allowing the representation.
Oh, it's like just make them states. I feel like it still wouldn't work greatly though, right? Would it?
I mean, you gotta somehow integrate them in states, but I think that we if we purge corruption and we do some we do some actual institution and nation building down there, we can integrate all of North and South America into the United States of America.
It seems like a pretty high risk policy, right?
Yeah, it's high risk, but it would result in like all of the supposed aims that we might have. It would give us it would give us a Christian majority nation. It would give us control over the resources we need to stand up to China, over the population we need to fight China. Um, right? It solves all of our problems.
Yeah, I generally think that the regime change is pretty dangerous. I don't really trust that regime change will just operate
Oh yeah,
exactly the way that we'd like it to. So I think generally like
it's
large scale regime change and large scale occupation seems like it's generally a really really high risk strategy, and I don't support the radical change in
well,
it that could be done.
I'm saying that I'm not necessarily I'm saying occupation, but not really occupation because I'm saying the people get representation in our government,
Um,
like on equal par with the people of America. like Pan Americanism.
Um, yeah, I guess we'll move on from that. I haven't even thought about that.
You didn't even know what to say to that.
I'd have to spend a lot of time thinking about that probably. That's interesting, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
but that's why my position on immigration is like, hey, they're all Catholics. We should probably like let them in.
it's an electoral thing for you.
But an electoral thing?
Yeah.
It's more of a like we shouldn't be persecuting fellow Christians just because they're from a different country.
Okay.
There's that, and there's also that's mostly my position on immigration. And then obviously you want the violent criminals, you gotta get rid of them, but you also want to get rid of violent domestic criminals. So that's not a issue of citizenship, in my opinion.
Okay. Um. I feel like. I mean, I feel like we've covered everything. If there's anything else you are interested in talking about, we can move to that. But aside from that, I feel like we've fleshed it out.
Wow, you haven't. Yeah, you didn't take very much of a position there, but let's see.
When it comes
I
to the
don't.
persecution, it's because I think I have a fundamentally different viewpoint for how like government is structured and how incentives should behave and like prioritization. I prioritize like, justice and like a sort of those policies far more than I would prioritize like the convenience of an electoral majority. It's like if we were aiming for just electoral majority, it's like we would just be like dictators in that scenario. I feel like because if the goal is to subvert the popular majority of the country for the goals of an eventual electoral majority, then that case that'd probably be like there's a lot of like really in the weeds reasons why I disagree with that, and I would take a lot of like really strong philosophical points of that are kind of like dangerous to make without evaluating a little bit first internally.
Wait, like subverting the electoral majority. I'm not saying for electoral majority. I'm saying for a Christian majority.
Oh, like you shouldn't ever disagree with people because they're Christian, or they should never like because I don't see it as
Well,
persecution at all if they're entering your country.
like a moral, I like a moral thing. We should couple reasons. One, we should want more Christians in the society, right? And two, we shouldn't turn away our brothers in Christ because they are, especially if they're being persecuted. I think there's a real argument for, um, I think there is an argument for a moral duty to like go crusading in Nigeria and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I think even regardless, we can't say like okay, just because people are fleeing persecution, then inherently they have to still come through the legal refugee channels. They can't just come through like a how they come through now, where it's skipping court dates and like the
Well, they're skipping
subversion
court dates now
of
because
the
you're
refugee
being arrested
system.
during court dates.
Huh?
It's not hard to attend your court dates if you show up to the court date and get snatched.
Um, I mean, like, I don't see it. If you're talking about like deportations, it's not like a for me. It's not like a Christian versus not Christian thing. It's about like a rule of law thing. I believe that American policy should be augmented towards like maintaining rule of law because there's a lot of downstream negative impacts to that, right?
Um, yeah, but should the laws be moral, right?
Yeah. Well, it's about the downstream. Like for me, justice is moral.
So
Like
I agree with
selective
the
helping
massive
of only
downside.
Christians versus not other people is not moral to me
Fair enough, but
because it's selective
I think the majority
prioritization.
of the people, I think the majority of the people coming in are Christian.
Yeah, but even then, they still don't have like they're not obtaining rightful passage. It still is obviously subverting our justice system. They're still not integrated. So like if you wanted to integrate them, that'd be mass amnesty, which would be rewarding people who do wrong. And if we wanted to not deport them and just leave them here, then in that case we're creating like a slave class, which doesn't have the moral requirements that we think that normal people should have as a moral requirement. And then obviously if we move towards deportation, it seems as though we're just like bringing things back into the just positioning, and then from there we can look at importing more Christians. It seems like two very different arguments.
Yeah, I really think it's counterintuitive. It's just really impractical and counterintuitive. Or like from okay, why not just put mercy up there instead of justice if it's going to cost us however much to deport the person and then to process them through the immigration system all the way back? Why not just give
Um,
the person
well,
amnesty
because
who
you're
needs
because
being.
the subversion of justice has a really big impact. So it's immoral. So like, even though it's more convenient to do what's immoral in the scenario, which is reward people for doing wrong.
Yeah,
I
but
think
you
that's a
always
really
like
in terms of the
there
self
are always
deportation. Like
every
two
person has
million
its
people self
opposing views,
deported.
right?
If we start giving amnesty to the other eight or like however many million we agree are here, that punishes selectively the people who did what was right and what was moral or just under our system of following our laws, right? Selective legal
Huh.
adherence is almost always immoral.
Selective legal adherence is almost always immoral.
Yes, because you're violating the social contract.
Um, no, actually.
Why?
When it's in accordance with virtues, selective legal adherence is not immoral. You have justice and you have mercy that are opposing virtues, and you're supposed to use prudence to discern between the two. You have other opposing virtues. I don't have them off the top of my head. I'm blank. I'm sure there are opposing virtues, right? But the relevant ones right now are justice and mercy, right? They're opposing virtues, and prudence, and like you're supposed to use other virtues to determine whether or not you use it in an instance. But that doesn't mean that uh, your your conflicting virtues are always going to be conflicting. You always have to selectively choose which virtue you're embodying in a given moment. So you have opposing virtues, like in this case, justice and mercy, right? And you always have to choose which virtue that you're going to embody in that moment. Yeah, but they did something immoral, like like morally immoral, right? The people crossing the border, by crossing the border, did they do something immoral? Okay, they broke. Is it immoral to break the law? The law? I mean, is it more immoral to break the law if the moral is it more immoral to break the law of a nation or to let your family die? It can. Actually, they have a moral imperative to save their if they to do whatever they can to protect their family. Yeah, we do have applied refugee status, and we were supposed to like expand the judges to handle that, right? And asylum refugees, and that's the process that we should like expand out. But if people are coming in via that process, which is most of the people coming in, then that's not actually coming in illegally. One, I think having a legal system that uh, leaves people unpunished actually is a worse has worse downstream effects on our order of legality. Um, so that's going to heavily depend on the severity of the crime. How does your treason to the nation relate to this? Oh, you're selectively using laws to. Well, I think whenever a law is immoral, you shouldn't follow it. The law is immoral when it contradicts with moral framework the moral framework that you believe in, which for my case is going to be Christianity, but in other people's case it won't necessarily be. Ought to be subjective. Moral framework to be okay. So is my moral framework objective or is it subjective? Well, I think you cannot logically prove moral realism, but I choose to believe in it because I believe in God. Um, Only if they're not immoral. I think that your personal sense of morality should override um your obligations to collective stuff. Otherwise, you're just going with the consensus. Um, it will devalue the legal system, yes, but the legal system should be in line with morality. If it's not, then would you rather be like immoral or would you rather be uh perfectly legally justified have a legally justified? I don't think it will. And I do have a historical example for this, and it's again going to be Christianity in Rome. It derided the Roman legal system. Christianity did. Every time there was a martyr, it broke down the Roman legal system, right? But that you would still say the martyrs are good. Are you supposed to enforce the moral acts? I just there is a level of risk that you take on, but that level of risk. Not exactly. In this case, you've got government action that's saying you want to, round up people and put them in prisons, and you and yeah, see, running away as a slave was a crime. Should it be illegal to cross the border illegally? Yes. No. Because the reason it has to be illegal to cross the border legally is so countries can maintain borders, but there's no moral right to there's no moral reason to recognize a country's borders. It's not moral. It's not. It's like you can recognize the state and the authority of the state, but you do so conditional upon like whether or not like you only follow laws out of convenience. Okay, you're saying like by you saying that by not following the law. Like it's like I'm saying when you follow the laws, you should choose to follow the laws out of convenience because you follow laws out of convenience because they overlap with your moral structure, not because you have some moral obligation to follow the laws in general. I mean, there's the render under Caesar what is Caesar's and under God what is God, right? But I would say that whenever the law is immoral, right? That's part of rendering unto God what is God. You overrule the law with the law of God. So you render to Caesar what is Caesar's. Okay, let me go back. Okay, so let me change that position actually. I think I didn't go nuanced. I think that it's immoral in some cases to cross the border and not immoral in other cases. Change upon other facts, right? Um, so like if you're fleeing, if you're just doing it for economic reasons, then it's probably not moral. But if you're doing it for um like your safety and stuff like that, then it probably is moral, right? But I we need to literally just apply AI to that, by the way. Okay. Yeah, pretty much. Yes. But I don't think I think the fact that the fact that their states cover the whole Earth nullifies that because you're gonna be in somebody else's house. You're gonna be in a state, right? Um, and if you can't adequately choose which country you're gonna be in, right? If you can't really renounce citizenship, then unless you get another citizenship, then you kind of do have an obligation to move countries if you're under like threat of life, or if you're under, I mean, or if your family's gonna starve to death, right? Like, yeah. Uh, I don't know how that applies. Okay, I can see that for you. I don't know how that applies when you have like what about a kid, right? Like, what if you have a kid? You gotta be the kid. Uh, like I can see that for the individual, right? What if you have to provide for other people? The chat? Is there a wait, hold, I don't, now I want to see the chat to see if
Wait, hold
it's like
on.
people.
Okay, for some reason my audio device just got deleted. What? That is
What?
unbelievably annoying. When did my audio device get deleted, and how did it get deleted? What? Like how no one.
Oh,
I wish someone would have texted me this. Okay, well. I have prescriptions that get. We got the entirety of the social debate. I don't know why my microphone would cut out. That's absolutely AIDS. It deleted
are
my
there
audio device.
three
It
people in the
literally.
chat and two people watching?
Oh, there's more people in the chat. Well, because people will leave and enter the streams. Like, but either way, this is gonna be mainly just VOD content. Okay, so I guess that part of the stream got cooked. My microphone got muted, bro. What the heck? Or no, my microphone, like my audio device in OBS, deleted itself. Like that's what happened.
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome, right?
I had the problem where my microphone was listed as a speaker earlier, and I couldn't figure out why it was
Yeah.
working.
Well, that's annoying. But either way, I guess still have the socialism debate. So now we're just fishing for VODs at this point. But or clips.
Oh
But
yeah, clips.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because my main viewership comes from clips. My YouTube base is pretty low, but at least for some days you get more
Those for
views,
like
some days you
Instagram.
get less. It'll be for Instagram clips and for Instagram clips, and additionally for my moderator left briefly before my audio device got cut. So like that's typically what I would have. So that's really unfortunate that my stream mod had to dip out.
Any topic you think would be easily clipped?
Um, can you say the N word for me? No, no, I mean like
No.
I'm joking, but like no. Yeah, I think I don't know. I feel like we've fleshed out the conversation pretty well. I'm kind of annoyed that the philosophy debate at the end got cut. Whatever. I wish this is why like moderators are important. I'm really fortunately happy that my moderator had to dip out. But yeah. Okay. Well, I guess in this scenario, then we can go on ahead and call it a wrap then.
All right. Thank you for your time,
All right. I
and
appreciate it.
it was nice debating you.
All right. See you, man.
Yeah, I'd like to debate you in the future if that's possible.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'd be happy to. All right. See ya.